What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Fire's Fire. I'm very excited for this episode. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Dr. Brian Paul, and the talented RJ Ellis. I have been a fan of Ras Kaya for some time. I've been following his work for many, many years, and we've known about each other and kind of crossed paths in the industry a few times. But I'm super excited to have him on the show today. And so, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Ras Kaya Paul of Pacific Northwest Roots.
Welcome, sir.
Kaya.
The legend lives and is on our show.
As my good friend Joel from ITAL Foundation says, enough legends in the game.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time, man. I know you're a busy guy and you got a lot going on, and we had a few reschedules that we had to do, and I appreciate you taking the time today.
Yeah, thanks for being flexible.
Hey, no worries. So what we like to do at the start of every show is before we jump into what you've got going on and hash and breeding, we want to kind of take it back and learn a little bit more about you and your history. And so we want to start right from the beginning of where are you from? Where did you grow up, Kaya?
I'm from the Kitsap Peninsula in Washington State. So if you look at Washington and it's got like the eastern side, and then that big peninsula that comes out, that's the Olympic Peninsula. And then there's another smaller peninsula on the inside of that's basically surrounded on three sides by the Puget Sound waterways. And so that's where I was born and raised, and my family's been out here for quite some time. I actually got some family up in Canada, actually all over Canada. But yeah, that's where I'm from. And
so what was childhood like? I mean, I from my understanding, you grew up in a rural setting, and your dad had a really interesting, I don't think it was a hobby, it was more of like a vocation, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about that and how that had influence on you growing up.
Yeah, no doubt. I like to think, probably nobody in the world grew up the way that we grew up. My dad didn't graduate 8th grade, and he he went into the service at 17 during the kind of the tail end of the Korean War. He was stationed over in Okinawa, and my mom was an East Coast lady, and like my granddad was an Episcopalian priest, and my grandmother was like this big theologian lady. She was like the first woman theologian on staff at some of the big schools, and she's written a whole bunch of books. So kind of two different lifestyles, but our growing up, we grew up on like 15 acres, and my dad hunted, so we had hound dogs, Tennessee Walker hounds, and he bred hounds and trained them, and we ran them, and we chased raccoon and bobcat and bear and cougar, and I grew up eating bear. I didn't really know what a hamburger was until I started playing Little League baseball, because that's just, we ate wild game. He hunted deer and elk and that kind of stuff. And
What is bear meat like? Is it gamey? Is it like, I don't think they have much. Do they have a lot of fat, or does it depend on when you get them?
No, they're pretty lean. It's a little bit gamey, but pig is or bear is related to pig. So like the back straps, we'd actually marinate those in Coca-Cola, and then cook them on the grill and cut them thin and dip them in the hot mustard and stuff. A lot of times we'd make bear burger, so you're adding back in the fat, and bear summer sausage, which is like my all-time favorite. There's just there's a different taste to it, but when you grow up eating it, that's just what it is, and it was good.
So not only did your father breed and raise hounds and hunt, but he was also a world-renowned game fowl breeder.
Yeah. So
I'd love to hear more about what that was like growing up for you around that.
For me, it was a lot of work because I was kind of at that age and I got to water him. But he started out actually with pigeons, honing pigeons, and he was again with all of this stuff with the hounds, with the fighting cocks, with the pigeons. He's breeding these animals, to kind of further what he's doing with them. So he started out with the pigeons, and he'd race the pigeons and stuff, and then he got into the cockfighting. And in the early 80s, we had a pit on our 15 acres. I mean, it had movie theater seats up two sides, and we had a grill, and it was kind of a big thing. He ended up getting busted, and had to tear it down, and had to donate all the money to his whatever charity of his choice. So we got a new scoreboard that year down at the baseball field. He was always mad they didn't put his name on it. But they weren't going to do that because he got in trouble for cockfighting.
Was your dad talking to you about the intention of what he was doing as he was doing it with the dogs, with the pigeons, with the cocks? Like, were you learning from him verbalizing what he was doing, or were you just watching?
I think especially with the chickens, but even with the hounds, with the hounds, it was more intuition and picking, that dog's smart and that dog's smart. And really, I think he bred mostly for, smart dogs that were, they'd stay on the right kind of trail. They weren't going to go and run deer. There were disciplines, and you could see hounds that weren't, like the ones they'd run deer, and they just kind of had a goofy demeanor. They didn't have the focus of the type of hound that my dad wanted to keep. Now, when it came to the birds, the birds are a lot more like weed, because there's like original strains. Okay, so these original strains, and I'm sure there's more, but the ones my dad was working with were the Hatch, the Claret, the Kelso. I'm missing one, but and essentially each of these different breeds has different traits. So some of these birds are very aggressive and hit hard, and other of these birds, they're high flyers. Some of them are just really smart, and so you're kind of trying to find that balance, And when my dad would breed, and I mean, we had hundreds and hundreds of birds in the yard, and they're all on tie cords with little wooden teepees. And it was my little brother and I's job to go water them. And you had to go out there every single day, because if a can got kicked over, you had to fix it. If it were okay, you left them. We'd pick grass and use that as the kind of your sponge to clean out. They had basically like when you get like a big tin of ketchup or something, we had fucking 300-400 of those. That was their watering things. And in the winter, if it froze up, you had to go out there and break it out, because they had to have water every day. But he'd bred those, with those various traits. But what he started to do, in addition to fighting them, right? Because we were, and the way that works is basically, they call it a derby. So if they had a 4-cock derby, it means that you had to enter 4 birds, and they match them up by weights, and there's an entry fee, and usually it's like winner take all. Sometimes it's not, and this is big sport in countries all over the world.
Oh, for sure.
So my dad really got intricate with it, and at first, it was just fighting. And before he really started getting into the breeding aspect of it, or maybe he was coming along with it, but the special aspects of fighting are how you select them. So he's breeding them, and then they get to a certain age, and then you cull out certain birds, and then at a year they cut the combs, and they're called stags. And at that point, you got to put them away. You got to separate them, because they'll naturally fight. They'll kill each other, and you'll have no birds for the next season.
Yeah.
But my dad figured out, let me go back. So once they become stags, then you can practice, right? So they get little boxing gloves. They cut off the spur. And then they put these boxing gloves on so they could practice, and you could kind of see which birds were doing what. And then you could select, and you kind of feel them. And, my dad hand us the birds, and you feel that one. And when it come time for the fights, maybe a month beforehand, he'd go pick the birds he wanted. And then he'd bring them inside into fly pens. The fly pens were basically narrow, so maybe 3 feet, 4 feet wide by 6 feet deep, and then maybe 12 feet high. And they'd have a perch up there. So the birds are flying up and down, like strength training. Okay. And then, as you get closer
Bird
to the
push-ups.
fight, yeah. As you get closer to the fight, he may have, say it's a 4 o'clock derby, but he's got 8 birds put up in what you call a keep. So the 2 weeks before, 2 weeks before the fight, you got the keep. And so he's got the birds in there, and he's basically narrowing down their diet. So he wants them to be no food in them. Like the last night or night before the fight, he give them a little buttermilk, and it would make them basically clean themselves out. They didn't get to be around hens during that month, but maybe the day or two before the fight, he'd put a hen in the barn, out kind of in the free area, but not in the fly pen, so all the roosters could see, and it just made him pissed. And he'd do training stuff. He'd walk them and do little exercise things that they do, and then you crate them up and keep them dark, and take them to the fight and be very calm and everything, and then you bring them out when they're ready. And he was very successful, and because of that, he figured out, I can sell the offspring of these champions, right? So if a bird wins 2-3 fights, he gets retired and becomes brood stock. And now he's made it. It's the gladiator that's made it out of the ring, and now he gets to make the babies.
I was just about to use the term gladiator because it reminds me exactly of that.
Yeah. Foster farm chickens, fuck it. You guys are all getting eaten, and nobody cares about you. These roosters are like highly prized, cared for, and they got a shot, right? So if you're a stud and you win, you get to be the broodcock. And then he'd make different crosses, and you could buy a breeding trio from him, a rooster and 2 hens, or you could buy the battle cocks from him, ready to go fight. The thing was, he would only sell the crosses. You could never get that original pure blood stock. And he knew how to mix it up right, and he got the pick of the litter every time. And when people would come over, they'd never even see the best birds, when they were picking their stuff. And then, that's kind of how that goes down. So that's kind of the, and I guess to get into some of the cool little details of it, the way that he would mark the chickens is, they got little 3 deal here, and they got little webs in between, right? So then he kept a little notepad, and he would punch. We call it a toe punch, and it was like, like a hole punch for paper, but much smaller, very small. And he'd just go in there and he'd nick it. And then, he'd write, okay, so my Kelso hatch crosses, they're marked on the left out. So they'd all be marked on that one. And you could go back through when you had to go find them in the field and bring them in, after that year of kind of wilding. And then you'd know what your stock was. So, I don't know. I guess that's
very cool. That's very, how many people have that experience at a young age? I think
and honestly,
so
the description
crazy.
of it, if you take out like chickens and cocks and you just said cannabis in there, you literally were describing growing things out and crossing it. And Jameson's talked about this quite a bit. It's like, you may think that you're getting the OG whatever, but until someone like yourself that's actually produced the OG and literally has it and knows how well, and we'll get into this later, someone like yourself that can bring it back, that's when you really know you've hit it, right?
Yeah. And I'm trying to think of the word that folks use right now, where you can trace the lineage back, right?
Genealogy.
Yeah, but no, I think it's called providence.
Oh, the providence. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Provenance.
So like some of these birds that my dad had, he got from, they were named for these people that he got them from. He knew these people. And there's just something. There's something to that,
Was he explaining his selections and what he was doing to you?
Or were you helping him
at the time, or did you only realize kind of the genius of what he was doing later on in your life?
I was helping him in the sense that I was watering his birds and following him around and doing whatever, I mean, I didn't have any valuable input for him.
No, but
What
was he
age was this?
explaining? Was he explaining?
And as far as knowing how what he was doing and stuff, I had an inkling. We would go to some of these fights, so some more interesting stuff to share. Different cultures fight birds. Okay, so Pacific Islanders, Filipinos, Guamanians. These were the people that I really grew up with. There's a big community of them out here, and we were just tight with them. The Mexican community, and they have different styles that they fight, right? And then the Howleys, the white guys, they have different styles too. So these implements that they fight with, one is called a gaff, and basically it's like I don't know, it's pretty long, maybe 4 inches long, and it's just a really skinny, narrow piece of steel with a tip at the end, right? So the Howley guys, the white guys, they like to fight the gaff, and they thought that kind of brought out the most skilled, and people would breed towards that and train towards that, right? But if you were fighting against the Pacific Islander folks, they used the long knife, which was the same length as a gaff, right? But it's just basically a blade on one edge. And then the Mexican guys were typically fighting the short knife, and it's just a much shorter version of the knife. And you can see the almost little horseshoe piece there. That's what hooks on to the sawed-off piece of the spur, just like that. Yep. So you'd wrap that inner part with some felt paper, like a boxer's boxing glove, right? And then, and this is so crucial, right? You have to set that knife properly. You've got to put it at a specific angle in relation to the bird's foot, right? And that's called tying the knife. And tying the knife is a very, very, very secretive thing. My brother wouldn't, he's the master of it. I have an older brother that actually carries on this tradition to this day. And he's a master of tying that knife. And when they bring him into the ring, they whatever the implement, whatever you're fighting with, they run it through, a piece of citrus fruit to make sure that nobody's poisoned the end of it. There's all kinds of crazy rules to battle, and how it works. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But we had people from all over the world come: Guam, Saipan, Hawaii, Philippines, Mexico City, to buy my dad's birds. And often when they come, they would cook us dinner. The guy from Saipan was a chef, and he made us this crazy Saipan feast. I got to go to parties, birthday parties. I always got put on the spot with the hula girls. There was hula girls there, and I don't know. It was a really interesting, kind of circle back to the upbringing of it. It was a really interesting upbringing. We were out there hunting with hounds, all kinds of wild beasts, and I mean, from a little age. My little brother killed his first bear when he was 8. I think I was 10 when I shot my first bobcat.
That's awesome.
And we were in there doing the chicken fighting stuff this whole time as well. I think when he got popped, I must have been 10 or 11 at that point, But that's how he fed and took care of us. He had worked. He was in the service, and then he worked at the shipyard and hurt himself and got retired out of there. And this is how he fed us with those birds, and with the dogs keeping meat on the table. And
absolutely,
it was just kind of a really interesting thing,
So what was cannabis like growing up? Like, what was it in your life? When did it first appear, and what were your first experiences with it like?
No, my dad was pretty strict. There was 5 of us boys in my family. I'm number 4. So I got 3 olders, like 12, 11, 9 years older than me, and then 1 3 years younger than me. 5 boys in this household. And my older brother, when he was a senior in high school, got kicked off the basketball team for smoking weed in the parking lot. And the brother above me always got in a lot of trouble too for herbs. My dad didn't really smile on it. And I was a big time athlete, and and I got really good grades. So I really didn't mess too much around with herbs. I smoked in junior high once, and I didn't get stoned, and was like, man, that sucked. It tasted like aluminum.
I remember not getting high my first time either, and I could have sworn that was like a common thing back in, like, we're all, I think, pretty close in the same age back in our day, that it was like the first time you smoke, you're not going to get high and you probably won't like it, but the second time you smoke,
Yeah,
I was ruined my first time. I was so high. I was seeing like panel vision and like claymation and shit. I was like, I can't get there ever again.
No, that was the first time I got high. Same thing, but it wasn't the first time I smoked. And I think I remember hearing a rumor that sometimes your brain has to be primed or something. I don't know. I don't know if that's just like urban myth, but
I too did not get high my first time, and second time got high. Right. So
and then in high school, I think I was a junior in high school, and was out one night with some friends, and they were like, we got $40. We're gonna get some booze, or we're gonna get some weed. And I was like, man, let's get some weed, because I just wasn't into drinking. And man, I remember just laughing so hard I couldn't even get off the floor, and having to get a ride home. It was awesome. But again, I wasn't a heavy user in high school, because I was really, really into athletics, and I had almost a 4.0 grade point average. And
what was your sport?
Oh, I was all league baseball player. And I was a tailback on our football team. We ended up being 23rd in the nation.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah. We went 13-0. We won our state title. I was the MVP of the title game. I'm not very big. I'm not the fastest, but man, I just out toughen them, hitting them in the mouth until they quit in the fourth quarter.
Farm boy style.
Yeah. But then my junior year, I had gotten a head injury. I got knocked out twice. It was in a state playoff game, and I got knocked out in the first half, and I browbeat the trainer into put me back in. They have laws against that now. He put me back in, and
I actually sat on the sidelines of a hockey team for 2 years of junior C's. They're 18. And did screenings for them for any time anybody took a big hit. We did preliminary testing. And now this was like 8-9 years ago. And now you're absolutely right. It's absolutely mandatory. What we've learned about all this is like so crazy. Sorry, that's my doctor side talking. So I'm glad you said that.
No, it's amazing. My mom knew this. She didn't want me to play football. And I think around that time, Junior Seau had actually committed suicide after having some concussions. Junior Seau was a big football player for the San Diego Chargers.
Yeah.
And I remember it being a big deal. And anyways, he put me back in the game, and the same kid ended up going on to be an all-pro linebacker, and he knocked me out again. And my brain swelled for 6 months.
Oof.
And really that traumatic brain injury fucked me up. But it led me to I was depressed. They got me on antidepressant pills, and I was conscious enough to know, like, I shouldn't be depressed. I don't necessarily like feel bad, like I love my life. I'm feeling good, but I can't. I'm crying at nothing. Mm-hmm. There's something fucking wrong with me. And the pharmaceutical guys were, well, let's try this. Let's try this. Let's try this. And I tried 3 or 4 of their fucking things, and it just fucked me up worse. And about 2 weeks into college, my neighbors invited me over, and they got me absolutely baked. And they were like, dude, you're so funny. Come back tomorrow. I came back, and I was stoned every day that week, and I didn't take my medicine. I forgot my medicine, but I was happy. And
were you ripping joints, bong hits? What were you hitting?
Oh man, we were ripping bong hits in Bellingham, Washington in 1995, 96. The customary, in fact, the kid that was smoking me out, Danny Zapatka, he was going to write a book about weed etiquette, and he was way ahead of his time, but like bong hits and it was bingers. Call them bingers. That's you. It's a snapper, a binger, whatever the fuck you want to call it.
Bro, that's how RJ and I rolled for 20 years.
The whole thing. You hit the tube, you slurp your slurp, and that's it. You're out. Next guy gets a fresh. He said, "Don't pass me a bong." He said, "That's like taking a bite out of a sandwich and handing it to me." So yeah, it was that, and then I was
That's
off.
legend. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
I always wondered why it felt wrong, but that explains it perfect.
Yeah, so and that was kind of like I was feeling better, so I went and bought some herbs, and then I was just kind of like, doing the math on it, and I gotten this student loan check, and I was like, fuck buying an eighth for $40. I'm gonna buy a half pound, and started flipping it in my dorms, and I never looked back.
Smoke for free. That's why.
And that school was right up there by the Canadian border, and within 3 years we had that Canadian border. We were all over it. And
So you got to see. I mean, like a lot of us, we got involved in this at a younger age and got to see a lot of cannabis coming through. Other than the standard beasters at that time, what was the standout varieties that you were seeing that you can remember?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I did not see a lot of that regular old beast until I moved out of Bellingham and moved more south and like back down into like Tacoma and Seattle. I was getting big bags of big duffel bags of absolute fucking fire from BC. That's in fact, I'll tie this in. Some kids I grew up with, and these were the two biggest dudes you've ever seen, just monsters, and we called them the County Boys. And they had a connect up there, and we would get these packs of this. They called it Afghani hash plant, and it was just fucking amazing. And sometimes it would actually come in ammo boxes, and it was just sticky and dank. And I never thought that I would see that weed again, and I haven't. But when I created coffee, I was trying to do something because I had Afghani hash plant, and I had this I had an alien OG that had an Afghani in it, and I had the alien Kush, which had an Afghani in it, and I didn't really like either of them, but I thought if I bang those two together, maybe I'll get some recessive Afghani. And the power of manifestation, this plant came. I'm like, oh, when I first smelled the coffee, I called it my happy Affy. I was like, this is the fucking one. I cannot believe this turb. It took, when you smell the weed, and it took me back 10 years to opening those bags from the County Boys and being like, holy fuck, this is amazing pot. And back then even it was 3,000 a pound, I think, coming across the border, and I we get it down to California and get 4 for it.
Like back in that day, like some of the flavors and quality of like 15 plus years ago, unmatched. Like I like the crazy.
In Bellingham at the time, so we were getting that work right from y'all, and some of it was really good, but we still had the local stuff that was just crushing everything, right? And people would say that, you got the beasters or you got the local. That's kind of the differentiating terms we use, the local. And in Bellingham at that time, because I thought, man, Seattle's got to have good weed, Tacoma's got to have good, and I moved there later on and discovered it was nothing like Bellingham. Bellingham had just the most different and unique. You would see northern lights that would just blow your mind, and Durban Poison, and it was like you go to the city.
Why was that?
City and they'd say the name, and it was not it. You're like, nah, this is fucking not it. Like even if when you smell it and it's a legendary strain, and you go, oh fuck, that's it. If it's the legendary strain, you see it and you're like, it's not it. That's not the fucking one. Somebody along the line bullshitted.
100%.
You got bullshitted.
Back in that day, every time I got White Widow, it was bullshit.
Right? Was it the people in Bellingham, or was it the geographic location that was making it special at that time, Kaya?
I was actually writing about this earlier this week. Here's the thing: is in that time period, right? It's fucking illegal as fuck, bro. Nobody was fucking online, and you weren't sharing no fucking cuts because you weren't telling nobody you were fucking growing. There was still jack boy. People were making jack moves up into the early 2000s. They're gone now. I mean, it happens, but it ain't like it was. Back in the 90s, motherfuckers, it was hot. You were either getting hunted by the cops, or you were getting hunted by jack boys, or you know, that's just what it was. So nobody was saying shit. People kept it under wraps. People didn't trade strains. There was no hype shit coming in from California. You know, when medical came and all this access came, all this bullshit came. People started passing out cuts, and I got a tray of this, and you know, fuck, I tried to verify half the shit, and it was just fucking God. I quit taking stuff in. That's why we stay like way in our lane. We're running shit. Nobody else is running. We're breeding stuff that's our own. So I want to stay fucking far away from that, you know. And I wish I had a time machine and could go back, RJ, and preserve some of those cuts that these fuckers had in Bellingham in 1995, 1996, because it was crazy. You know, and then I run into some, you know, there's a great White Widow cut out in Honolulu, Hawaii. It's the one. It's the one. I agree with you. Every time I had White Widow, I was, this fucking garbage. Had it out there and I was like, what in the fuck? And they're like, yeah, this cut's been here for fucking 30 years. And you're like, this is fucking why, or even longer, in the 80s. This is why. This is fucking why it got, I understand now.
RJ and I talk about this all the time. And I've wondered if it's just because we've kind of always had access to good weed. And it's like,
we were
almost like
lucky,
stumbling
bro.
into it. And I was like, was the weed that we had back then when we used to smoke stupid amounts, was it like way better than what we could get? And like, the loudness of the bag was like, you double bag it, you vacuum seal it, and you're still fucked. You're still, if you put into a car, you try to smoke
Dude,
a car,
gram.
like 2 or 3 days you smell it, even if you didn't smoke in the car.
Yo, there was times Harps, shout out Harper, would come by my store. I used to manage a head shop, and he'd give me like a little gram in a little bag. And he'd just be like, yo, just for you, like just for you. And it would like dank out the whole shop to the point where like I wouldn't even recognize. And the customers would come in and be like, yo, like, like, is there like weight back there? And I'm like, oh no, like, fuck, homie just gave me a gram, and like it fucking stinks. This whole store just fucking danks. And I'm like, oh fuck, really? Like, we don't get that shit anymore.
So
Yeah.
actually, to that end, I wanted to ask you, Kaya. You said, and to bring back, and this leads us, I guess, maybe into the other part. And I'm stealing Jameson's thunder here, a little bit, but we can circle back. But like, do you believe someone has seeds of some of those OG cuts that are just sitting in somebody's, like, you know, drawer that can be popped and we'll bring it back? Or, and I may know the answer to this, do you think the finding breeding new strains together to selectively find, you know, that profile or whatever that you're looking for is the way to do it?
I don't know. I think it's hard. I think once you outcross, you're adding hay to the haystack. If you're trying to replicate or get something old, you know, if you find an
You just got really quiet, Kaya.
sorry.
No worries.
I think once you outcross, you're kind of breeding hay to the haystack. So if you can find, that's why bag seed was always like, oh, this is really good because it came from a good one and it was probably an accident. So it's probably actually just an S1, and you lucked out and got something that was really dope from the next thing. And it was kind of just like it. And Tom Hill told me a long time ago that, you know, if you're thinking of, you know, back crossing and doing some things, S1 at first, just to see if there's good stuff in there, if it's stable, and if it is, then you can work it around to back cross it to, you know, find more stable males and that kind of thing. But it kind of really depends.
So before we dive into more breeding stuff, I want to go back and kind of understand what was the inspiration that drew you to cultivation, and what was that first cultivation, and when did it happen, and what did it look like?
So you got to ask me that question again, but what brought me to breeding? But I'll tell you the cultivation answer first was money. I grew my first crop. Well, you know, those neighbor guys up there in Bellingham, they said, fuck, let's get a Phototron, right? Sold a couple pounds, had some extra money. We bought a little Phototron, set it up, grew one plant, was like, fuck, this is amazing. Went, stole a bunch of lights from campus, started fucking building out closets. And then, you know, hey, you got a fucking house, cool, let's use your closet, dude. You know, and like we had little grow ops all over the fucking place. Found some seeds that spring, ran out to Blanchard Hill, hiked all over hell, found some fucking creeks, diverted some water stuff, throw the shit in the ground, came back at the end of the summer. We're like, whoa, this is amazing, you know, and then it just snowballed from there, right? But really, it was, you know, when I first started cash cropping, like at that point, it was more playing with it, and I was really more interested in smuggling and trafficking. This is long ago, so I can say that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I wanted to do, and I got to see a lot of pot. That gave me my education right there.
Yeah.
It was a little later when I actually kind of had the means and resources, and saw people doing things in their gardens and making big money, that I was like, oh, I can do this, And then I had a friend who at one point said, hey man, I'm going to cut out to the islands. You can use my cabin. And we set up this hydroponic setup, and he basically coached me through it over the phone. There was no internet. And it was, I clutched it, and we made, that back then down here, it was like, you were getting 4,200 for an indoor pound.
Yeah.
And I hit like 11 pounds off a fucking 5.5 lighter. And, we went out and had a $2,000 dinner. We're smoking $100 cigars, and I was fucking hook, line, and sinker. Because I'd always been moving other people's pot, and that was great. But man, I made, I was making $100. I mean, we were moving volume, so you couldn't put a lot of tax on shit. If you pulled a couple out of the duffel bag and you got them on the side, you maybe make a little more. Mm-hmm. But that's not what we were doing, So I was always had this fucking nagging thought in the back of my head, like, fuck, I'm passing along fucking thousands for every 100 I get. I want all of that. Fuck this, and I can make a better quality. Mm-hmm. And so I started doing that, and man, back then we would throw the trim out. And when I found out you could make hash with trim, I fell in love with hash. It was like, holy shit, this is amazing. This is even better, and that's a whole nother rabbit hole that I got drugged down. I mean, you want to talk about, and it was weird because it was at the time when it was all developing. We were all figuring it out together, the people that were doing it. But it was like the fucking quest. Like, we started out with fucking temple balls, and we were trying to get the fucking dabbable 6-star that was fucking perfect. And it got done, and that took a lot of getting your ass kicked. a lot of getting your ass kicked to get to that point.
What year was that, Kaya? When you started experimenting with ice water?
I want to say like 2004.
Okay. And were you watching Marcus's videos, or were you buying his, what was your first set of bags?
I'll be honest. I've never seen a Matt Rise video.
Or a Matt Rise video. Yeah. Like who was showing you what,
well, I liked, I would go on to, they had a website called Bubble.
Yeah. Bubble Man's World.
Bubble Man. Yeah. It was called something though. I can't fucking remember.
Bubble Now?
It was, it was related with that. He had like a little forum back then, and we had one that we were developing. But a lot of it, honestly, man, I just felt it out and did it myself. And then I would link up with other hash makers. Shout out the GOAT Brian from up in Seattle here. He won. I've actually got one of his the cut that won the High Times Cup up here. I'll put it this way: his hash is undefeated in High Times Cups in Washington State. And I mean, there was only 3 of them, but it was an OG Ghost Train haze, and it's the most incredible terps on it. But he came over and showed me some tech, and my buddy Sarang from Polar Ice, and there was just a small group of us that kind of knew of each other, and we would talk and say, well, maybe if we try this, but nobody had figured it out, and wasn't just like, hey, this is what we were all experimenting.
So were your first concentrate experiences a solventless experience, or did you have a BHO stage prior to that?
I was playing with solventless first, washing stuff, and then when BHO came up here, I was super interested in it, and so I had done a little bit with it. I had got some little like O'Keefe tubes and did this little blasting thing, and I was doing it out on my deck, and the one day I did it, and there's a little rubber cap on the top, and the pressure from it just popped that thing up, and it shot all the material back in my face. And I said, fuck this. I'm never doing this again. Fuck this. I threw the O'Keefe tubes out know if anybody remembers the little O'Keefe tubes. They were the only one. There's, you know, I mean, we didn't even know how to fucking purge it, anyways. You know, thank God I threw it out. It would fucking killed my lungs. But you know, I mean, we were blasting into a fucking Pyrex dish, and then putting it on top of lights for warm, putting it in the refrigerator, top of lights,
Yeah, there was no
refrigerator,
tech.
stirring it,
No
whipping
tech
it.
back
You know,
then.
like fuck out of here. You know, it's fucking toxic what it was. You know, and the first time I dabbed it, I could smell it, I could taste it. You know, I was like, this is not fucking good for me. You know what I mean? Like the room kind of got dark, and my vision went tweaky. You know, and I was like, fuck, dude, this is not good. You know, I hope I don't pay for those early experiments later in life. Probably won't. So, are you fucking
Jameson thinks it's a right message.
yeah. So after that experience, I said, fuck it, I'm going back. And the thing was, the market here changed, right? So BHO was kind of taken over, and for a while I could sell my hash, and you know, I remember getting, you know, $10 a gram for like the low grade, $20 a gram for the bubble hash. And then when it got better and better, I was asking more and more. But I remember at one point going into the store, and this was a little bit, you know, deeper into the medical times. I want to say, you know, maybe 10 years on from when I started making solventless. But the BHO had really taken over, and the store shops were like, they didn't even want solventless. They wanted BHO. I had store guys tell me, man, BHO killed your hash. Nobody wants your hash anymore. So it's nice to see it come back.
Yeah, I think, you know, for it's really interesting to see those market fluctuations, and you know, in Canada we're fully caught up in some ways and not fully caught up in others, and it's always interesting to see those market reverberations, I guess. But I wanted to talk like about your like, were you a dabber once you tried dabbing? Was that something that was always a part of your life, or was it something you tried and didn't really get into for a little bit?
The first couple things we were dabbing were BHO, and again, I just wasn't having good experiences with it.
Yeah. Were those like, was that on like a titanium swing, like a red hot titanium?
Yeah. Again, we had this group, this online web forum called nwgt.org, northwestgreenthumb.org. And the guy that runs Refined Seattle, it's one of the biggest oil companies in Washington State. I was giving him material to run, and we had this little party, and they gave me a big dab, and you know, I was like, fuck, I can't drive home. You know, it was scary. And I really didn't want to do it after that. And then I got home and came down and was like, wow, I want to try that again. You know, like, holy shit, that was more than I expected, but woo, let's go there again.
So did you recognize, like, diving deeper into your hash making journey, you know, your first experiences washing your trim and using the bubble bags, did you discover the science of hash making at that point? Like, when was the moment when you really were able to understand the artistry that is, you know, isolating resin heads and producing that fire material? Like, was it immediately a click for you, or did that take some time before you really dove into it?
I don't know if I quite understand your question.
Like, when you first washed your trim, was that like a light went on in your head and you're like, I can do this. I understand this process, and this is something that I'm gonna, you know,
no,
deeply into and scale up quickly? Or did that take some time for you to get to that realization?
Like I said, we used to throw the shit away. It was literally get it out of the house because it's evidence. Burn it, throw it over the hill. And when I finally figured out that I could make hash, the first thing I did was I went down to Home Depot and I rented this industrial paint mixer. And I bought a 45-gallon brute can. And yeah, he's fine. And I filled it up with ice and water, and I put board over it, and I stood on top of it, and I had my friend plug that fucker in, and it just, you know, just shot shit everywhere, and it was horrible. And I thought, man, you really fucked this up, you know. And so I went back to the drawing board and I got myself some 5-gallon bags, and I just started playing with the process and trying to figure out how I could make it efficient. And so I figured out this cool little process, and I could buy 4 bags and cut the bottoms out, or 4 buckets and cut the bottoms out of these couple, and do this thing where I lined the bags out and then dip and poured. And I was really proud of myself. It took me quite a while to figure that out. But I knew other people making hash, and I was smoking them. And I thought, all right, you're onto something. And the more I worked at it, and the more I saw other people, just little hints of stuff here and there, you kind of realize, like, listen, if the 4 of us, right, were in a cave and we had endless ice and weed and, a store, after a couple years, we'd kind of all figure out, if we're halfway smart, or at least 3 of us would figure out a very similar process. One of us may be the odd man out, but most of us will start coming to the same conclusions, right? Like, the first time I saw Frenchie use the thing of hot water and roll it out, like, I'd never seen anybody do that. I'd never been taught that, but intuitively, I had figured out that's what I was going to do with this hash when I made it. So there's all kinds of little things where you just, science or just discovery and experimenting, and the way that our minds work, you kind of start ending up in the right path. I mean, it's just like with growing, right? And sometimes it also has to do with the tools that are available to you. But it's really cool, right? Like, what's state of the art growing now? And for me, it's one thing. For somebody else, it's another. But what is the process? And you could see another, in 1995, you didn't get to see in other people's grow rooms. If you did, you fucking learned something huge. Yeah. Huge. I would walk into a grow room and go, oh, fuck. That's why did I not think of that? There wasn't this big information share like we have now. People we would never be online talking like this. So cool. it's really important to keep that kind of shit into context. People nowadays, like, I'm a fucking expert. Man, like, you've been on the internet for fucking 2 years, dude. Like, slow the fuck down. And if you allow
Say it
me
again for the people in the back, Kaya.
Yeah, if you allow me to go on a little tangent, you got these fucking guys out here that are consultants or whatever the fuck you are. And you may know something about lights. You may be the fucking foremost expert of lights, but you don't know dick about weed. Some of these guys, you don't even fucking smoke it. You never sold it like I've sold it. You haven't lived it like I lived it. You're not married to the shit like I'm married to the shit. You don't get the culture. You're fucking kind of faking it, to be honest. And these people get into positions, where they're working their way in and blah blah blah, and it's like, man, stay in your fucking lane. Stay in the light thing, or in your nutrient thing, or in your whatever thing. But knowing dank, that's something else. And I'm here to tell you, nobody gives a fuck about your mids or your whatever it is, your latest stupid hype strain. The whole fucking industry is run off of dank. All right, people are searching for the fucking dank, and us, we may have grown up seeing it, or you always had it around. I was really blessed in college; there was a lot of it around. A lot of people have never seen that, especially as the market opened up. I mean, there used to be this many weed smokers. Now there's fucking this many weed smokers. We've all seen it because it was fucking small, and it was when it was 4,000 a fucking pound, and people put their heart into the shit, and it made them rich. And if you had something new and exotic, you get paid different. Now with all these new people smoking and all these new growers over here, they don't give a fuck about that. They don't even know what it is. Show them some dank. You'll have them. They'll never go back to that other shit. I'd rather not fucking smoke. Pull out some mids. I'm not smoking that shit. I'll wait. But that's like for me. If you want to talk about the thing that really gets my goat, that's it. Too many of these people just listen.
You're in my head. You're in my head.
Yeah, preach, man, preach.
Yeah. So
Church
I
on a
don't know,
Wednesday.
and it's hard because some of these folks are well disguised. It's not my style to call these fuckers out, and it hurts to see other people kind of just like puppy dogging behind them and, oh, you're so smart, and like, man, I credit due, man. You understand fucking plant biology. You fucking got it, man. You know you can read a par meter like nobody's fucking business. I never seen a fucking par meter till the last couple years. And I've been in this motherfucker for 26 years, 27 years. You know what I mean?
And there's chameleons out there.
Shit, man. I can read the plants. I know what they want. You know, I know you gotta adjust this. There's so many fucking variables all the time. And if you can't maneuver and do all that, you know, I don't know.
100%, man. Not all Chads wear suits either. You know, they're not all easy to recognize. You know, it's a rough industry because, you know, a lot of people who, you know, were failing in other industries saw it as an opportunity, as a ticket to the gold rush, and so we're dealing with, you know, going through a lot of individuals that have been transient in other industries. So, you know,
I got friends. The guy that we bought our farm off of, the farm that failed that we bought, the guy I grew up with. He's best friends with my cousin. They go hunting all the time. When he got the license, my cousin said, "Hey, so and so's got it. You should hit him." I hit him up, man. Let me jump in there and run your spot for you. You're a general contractor. Let me go grow that weed for you, dude. You can build it out for me. And oh no, I got this. And he just you know lost his ass. I mean, lost so much. And then, you know, we stepped in, we picked it up for pennies on the fucking dollar and turned around and crushed it. And literally picked up the shit that they left behind and grew the first couple crops with it and just reinvested.
Yep.
Literally from there's no fucking money here to we did $1 million last year in hash sales. 1 million, all hash in 12 months. And that was year 3 at our business. And first year was only like half a season. The first 2 years we ran off of 200 amps of service.
That's insane. That's crazy, man. Wow.
Yo, congratulations. And, you know, Jameson coaches me on this all the time. And he's like, it's about the long game because we're in it for the heart. We're in it for the real reason. Whether there's money there or not, you're going to keep doing it. And when you have the passion for it, and then, as you said, for the real community and real culture, that's when eventually it'll come around because the right people recognize, and you know the Chads will fall out. Their angel investors will only invest for so long when they can't figure out how to sell their mids. And I'm glad to hear that's how it went. I didn't realize that's how you had got your farm, but that's fucking amazing. It makes it all that more sweet. Like separate if you just like were succeeding like this, but the fact that you're succeeding on someone else's failure in the same industry because you know how to do it and you have the real passion, and that's like on a next level passion, even more than I think 99.999% of people who say they have passion for this plant. That's amazing, man. So congrats. I'm very happy for you. I wish you even more success. I hope 2022 brings double, 2 million.
Well, that's our goal. But let me blow your mind even more, because prior to getting this farm, right, 2 years prior to that, I had been approached at Emerald Cup by these folks. Went up, helped set up and design, staff, the whole fucking nine. This big operation. They stiffed me. They owe me 6 figures. They stole $250,000 worth of seed. One of those so-called consultants that I'm talking about that everybody thinks is so fucking smart came up there and was supposed to be doing just some help. I invited him up to help me do some technical stuff with the equipment. Ended up writing up this report, basically threw me under the bus, weaseled his own way in. I mean, it was horrible, right? Told these folks that I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, yada, 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 right? And I kept quiet about it for this moment so that I could say I made $1 million, so suck a dick. You didn't believe in me. You want to come out here and man, it was hard for my family. It was super fucking hard for my family, bro. Turned my fucking world upside down, right? And I got young kids, man. I was making this trip, bro. It was 2.5 hours one way, 2.5 hours back, 5 days a fucking week, you know. And I said, man, I'll extend you guys some credit on what you pay me. We were contracted up and everything, and they just fucked me. And but 6 months after that, my good friend called me, said, hey bro, we can get this farm right down the street from where we live, and we can do this together. And we're doing it. We own the fucker, and we're successful, you know. And,
Dude,
and
I'm
to
so
me,
happy.
I wanted to fly this one the whole time, but that success is this one. You know what I'm saying?
100%. I've had some rough.
Now I'm coming for their fucking sales. I want every fucking penny.
Good.
People stop.
Bro,
buying
I'm like, I got like happy tears for you right now. Like I'm literally choked up.
That's dope, brother.
It gets me fired up.
I think a lot of us who this is more than a job to us. This is our life, get taken advantage of. And, you know, we get promised something so that someone can go out and raise money on our name or on our skill set. And then, you know, we eventually get cast aside and the business moves on. And because, you know, we want to do this right and we love the plant, we maybe, you know, leave something on the table or don't tie the contract up tight enough in our favor, just in the faith that, you know, everybody's got that same feeling that we have, and they don't. I mean, you know, after 5:30, they don't give a fuck about you and the business or the plants or anything. And so I'm super shocked, man.
It's unfamiliar territory. I mean, fuck, man. As much money as they owe me, they paid me a bunch of money too.
Yeah.
But you know, I fuck, man, I didn't really have money like that, you know, and I got chewed up with taxes and all the other little pitfalls that, like, fuck me, I didn't even know like that was a thing. You know, and the contract stuff, man, that's a whole nother story we could go down. But
hey man, if you want to air it out, you can air it out.
And you know, it's what it is. You know, I can't dwell on it.
Yeah.
What I can do is I can take my skill set, I can take what genetic stock I got left, and I can take the fact that I know that, like, that company right now, they're actually pretty successful.
Mm-hmm.
How could they not be? I fucking designed this thing. I staffed it. I taught them how to fucking do the whole fucking thing. It made me want to throw up in my mouth when I hear this fucking Chad motherfucker that is the owner's son-in-law that runs the thing, and he's in there hosting hash classes, and he's just fucking parroting shit I said. Parroting word for fucking word. Parroting what I said, bro.
Yep.
You gotta go look it up. I'll send you the video. I finally found that video. It's really disgusting, dude. It's so disgusting. And you know, back in the day, I go do something about it, and you can't do that with these kind of people.
Not anymore. Not
so you really just gotta learn your lessons.
Take your licks, move on, and outwork them. And you know, the thing is that they're only thinking about this 8 hours a day, and we're thinking about this 24. So you know, we can outwork them in that way. So I've got.
Yeah, they had brought these Wall Street guys in, and once they heard about distillate pens, you know, they were, oh, you know, like, no, I'm not fucking doing that, you know, money, and I'm like, listen, you stick with what we're doing here. Trust me, this is gonna get us where we want to go. Oh man, I was so humped about the thing, you know. And I said, listen, if I'm not here, it's cool. I'm gonna be doing what I'm doing wherever I land.
Yep.
Because I don't know anything else.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Absolutely, man.
I got a college degree. I guess I could go teach. I could go do other things, but this is what I know. You know what I mean? Michael Jordan could go sell cars, but wouldn't that be a shame if he wasn't dunking on motherfuckers?
It would be a shame.
No, I need to be on the field dunking on motherfuckers.
100%.
For everybody, you know, for all of us. You know, help me dunk on these fuckers. Let's go get it. You know, like, I feel like that's my kuliana. You know, that's like, it was to tie into your questions about the medical stuff. Like, that's been forced upon me. That's like, you know, without getting too religious on you, but you know, that's God's calling on me. You know,
I was gonna say that's your calling, whatever it is you believe. Doesn't matter.
Put that on my heart, and that's what I'm doing. That's what I've always been doing.
You know? Yeah. I want to ask how I want to, like, kind of take it back to hash and understand, like, how quickly after Phil at Soil Grown put that video out were you pressing rosin? Like, was that something that you were like a very early adopter of, or did you kind of wait and see what people were doing before you started looking into actually pressing rosin, and was the first rosin you pressed flower, or was it heads?
So are you guys familiar with the Clear Scientist? Okay, and he used to have a kid that worked.
Absolutely.
You had a kid that worked for him, and he went by the name of Straight Concentrates.
100%.
Okay, and Straight Concentrates used to be the hash processor for DNA genetics in California.
Remember that.
Before he went to California and worked for DNA genetics, he was up in Washington in the medical market. And I was always going down to California for the High Times Cups and Chalice and whatnot. And Low Temp Plates actually started. They went to I think it was their first trade show was Chalice, and they got in touch with me through kids that was working with me, and we put them on. We let them share a booth with them, and I put them in the booth, and that was like when they first started squishing flowers. Like it was like right at the beginning, and the kid, the Straight Concentrates kid, he put up some videos, just some hash running out of the thing from plants. I was like, wow, that's fucking amazing, and people were just playing, right? Like, swish an ounce, and I was like, flower rosin at that time, it was like $50 a gram, and not many people had it. Hardly anybody had it. People were squishing shit with the fucking hair dryer at home or a hair thing at home, and nobody had it. But this kid from Straight, he had made this huge fucking press, and I called him. I said, dude, come over. I got a crop coming down next week. And we did that whole fucking crop. And it turned it from whatever number that was worth to like 3 times what it would have been worth. and I went and I dumped it at the store, the dispensary, and bounced out to Hawaii, and I was gone for like 2 months. And when I came back, the price of flower rosin had dipped from 50 down to like 20 because people figured out the hash stuff. And it was crazy. But we squished whole crops. And I gotta share a mistake I made. We'd taken trim. We ran this. It was actually Exotic Mike. When he bred we did some breeding stuff together, and it was we called it the key lime cut, and it was cookies and cream crossed with cherry pie. And we grew this beautiful fucking crop. It smelled amazing, and we had all this trim, and so we ordered some bags, and they were the littlest fucking bags, like teeny little fucking bags. You could put like 2 grams in each fucking bag, right? So I hire my trimmer kid, and he sits there, and he takes like fucking 2 pounds of this trim. And again, I've already been washing hash. I'm not thinking about squish. I'm just thinking about this flower stuff, and it's kind of the rage. And if I can cut out the process and it makes the same thing, great. So this fucker squishes 2 pounds into all these little things, 2 grams at a time. And I got this fucking mountain of these things. And I should have done a test press after the first one. Test press, and it's just poop soup. It's just black, comes out. Smelled great. But long story short is, that was kind of my introduction, was that the Straight Concentrates guy, bringing in this big press, and we squished whole fucking rooms right away. And I think we were, in fact, I guarantee we were the first people to do that, because when we showed up at Chalice, I had those little slips. I don't know if you've seen my little slips. I got some downstairs, but that's how we would package the hash. Right?
Hold on, I'll bring them up.
I had custom parchment done with my brand on it, and you put the little piece of hash on the rosin on that piece of parchment, and you'd fold it over, and then you'd slide it in the little slip, and put a little deal on it, and that's how we sold hash. And we took it down to Cali, to Chalice, and nobody was doing it. Nobody had it like that at all, even down there.
So in the early days, were you serving it as fresh press, or were you curing it out and then gramming it out?
I wouldn't say that we were necessarily like cold curing it, but a lot of times I would wash the hash. In fact, the one time that's what I did. It was because Frenchie had always preached that if you let the hash just sit in granulated form, it'll kind of change a little bit. So we would let it sit in granulated form for a month or two, and then put it in pouches and press it. And we were using coffee filters. Yeah, there you go, boom. And at that time, Farmer Joe Parker, he was like on the filters, so coffee filters and stuff to squeeze it out and press it out. Yeah, it's some of the older stuff. Yeah, see, there's a Miami mango, or the mango on the bottom there. See that Kimbo on the bottom left over there?
That is the throwback.
That's from Cuban
That.
Grower. Yeah, and there's some Miami melts from Doggy, but yeah, Cuban, when he got into he actually entered under the Roots banner in the first, I think it was 2014, in his first High Times Cup. He was on that forum with us, Northwest Green Thumb, and the guy that got me into breeding, Lemon Hoko, said, "Man, Kaya, you got to meet this young kid. He makes really good hash, and he's thinking about entering." And he came over to my house and gave me a dab of some dry sift. It was Super Silver Haze or some shit. And
Your man's tuning in.
What up,
hey,
Lemon
what's
Hoko?
up, man?
That's awesome. Man. Shout out Lemon Hoko.
Super
That's
hype.
awesome.
And yeah, it was Super Silver Haze, and man, I took a dab of this shit, and my legs went tingly, and I was like, "Fuck, bro, we have to enter that in the cup," And it was expensive, it was like $1,000 or something to enter. But since I was doing something in there, it was like half the price. So I said, "Man, I'll enter it on your behalf," I'm not gonna try to take credit from you or nothing, And I said, "But you should change the name, because you're Cuban Grower." I said, "Bro, you should change the name to the Miami Haze," And it's like, "Oh yeah." So we, when he put it in there, it was Cuban Growers Miami Haze, and he took third place. I think he took third place that year. And at that time, I actually entered in. I didn't have any hash on hand. I entered in Coffee Flowers, and I took third place for the Coffee Flowers, and it was the strongest entry in the cup. And they put me in the High Times for world's strongest strain, and I think it tested at like 31% from Steep Hill. That was 2014. Yeah. And since we've been running coffee, it tests at 30% and above. All different kinds of pheno from seeds at all different kinds of labs. So it's definitely a high tester. But anyways, that's a little hash history for you, and
that's what this is all about, man. Getting down to it and getting the history of it. I want to talk a little bit more about your process for making hash. Are you hand paddling, or are you machine washing? What's your methodology?
I've done both.
Yeah,
I've done both. I think the optimum way to do it is if you. I like those new machines. I don't know if I want to fucking drop $30,000, $20,000 on one, because you know what I mean. That's a lot. And it'd be one thing if I had just a huge operation and I was dumping whatever the fuck 24,000 grams in there twice a day. I'm not doing that much. And I don't know that I want to do that much, to be honest with you.
I feel like that wouldn't be your style, though. I feel like if you were to have that kind of money, you would hire 24 people and have like people in bins, and it'd be like a big lineup with like crazy music going on, and you like hyping everybody up in the front, like almost like a workout class or something.
I like that.
I feel like that's where you're still, no?
Well, that spot I was talking about earlier, we designed this beautiful hash lab, and spare no expense. And we got an old, it's like therapeutic stainless steel therapeutic tubs, and took everything out of it and put it up on. We built a little scaffolding thing, so it was up above, like it was above a garbage can, and then made a little stairway going up and painted the stairs red, yellow, and green. We called it the stairway to high grade, and we'd fill that big thing up, right, with ice and water, and then we'd throw in like 8 of those ice cube bags, and we'd sit up there, 2 of us, and we'd be paddling in a circle, and then we'd pull that off, and that was what we used for the first 2 pulls. We used that for 6-star. So we pull it off, wick it down, take it into the next room, which was climate controlled, cold and dry. This one was climate controlled, cold and wet. So in the cold and dry room, once it's dried down, we'd sieve it out, put it on cookie sheet racks. That's still what we do today. And then, but once we got those first 2 cycles, then we pull those bags out and go throw them in the machines and let them, do the fucking work for us for the final ones. And all that stuff would just get pulled, amalgamated into one deal, and that's going into the rosin. So that's kind of the process and how that works. And generally, all the outdoor that we run, because we've got big greenhouses. Some are primitive, some are like fully light assisted with heated beds, and but all the stuff that we grow outside, just because we're in a forest and there's country roads and it's a little dusty, we've just had issues with specs. So everything gets rosin. We don't make 6-star from the outdoor. Maybe in the future, when we can get some more trees planted and more ground cover, we'll do that. But at this point, everything from outside is just rosin. And then we have 3 indoor rooms. Some are headlights, some are LEDs. We're moving in indoor beds, and the indoor crops are where we get the 6-star from. And again, we separate, and then the 6-star gets air dried in the climate controlled room, and everything else gets put through the freeze dryers.
I want to talk about this. I want to talk about.
Can we just back up 1 second?
Sorry, go ahead.
I just want to talk like if you're taking down that outdoor, just in terms of preservation, are you like taking down and flashing with like LCO2 or LN2, like that gang, or are you just like what's your vibe?
That straight concentrate guy kind of pioneered that, and I think
I know, that's why I'm asking.
they actually have patents on it, and they were doing stuff in Colombia. Personally, I've never used that with the water process. I would love to fucking try it. And I think that if you're doing something on big scale, that's the way to do it. This is going to make the doctor very happy. Let me tell you how we process. Most people, strip and rip. We literally bring down a plant at a time. It comes in. If it's outside, we've got a tent set up. If we're harvesting inside, it's in the deal. And one guy brings it in, hangs the plant, and then they buck all the big leaf off. The next guy bucks all the big leaf off. The next guy cuts off individual branches and hangs them, right? And then it's like a processing line, right? The next couple people are so now you've got a stem, right? And all that's on it is the bud and sugar leaf. Okay. Now that person is going to take, and they're not allowed to cut leaf or plant or bud material, right? They've got to cut stems. So they cut the stem, and they can cut up the buds too to break them down into the smallest pieces. And they do this over cookie sheets that are lined with parchment paper. And when it gets to be just, one layer, one of the guys grabs it, runs it back into the walk-in freezer, and we've got racks and racks of cookie sheets. Boom, 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 boom. We throw them on the cookie sheets, and they get flash freezed. It takes 24 to 48 hours to freeze the plant.
You're right. I fucking love that.
That sounds fucking awesome.
That kind of gave me a fucking hard on, because wait, so do you also do like a time limit on it too? Like if they go past 20 minutes, then that tray's going in no matter what or something, or they're fast enough and you've got enough?
Yeah, they'd be fired. We're moving fast. So boom, boom, boom. As they get filled up, they get sent into the back. They get thrown on the racks. They're frozen. After 2 days, which is our standard SOP, is 2 days on the racks. We pop the cookie sheets out, and we've made this cool little funnel looking thing that you can dump a full cookie sheet onto, and it funnels it down into a turkey bag. Turkey bags then can get set on the racks. They remain open for a day, just to kind of burp if there's anything left in there, and then we close them up until they're washed. And generally, we're getting to them pretty fast. I mean, our record's 24,000 in a day. We're typically doing 16,000 grams in a day, so we can run through material pretty quick. But yeah, that's
gold,
the process.
Gold bars.
Yeah. And listen, we could save some money. We could probably save some money just stripping the plants in the room and then freezing them. I've done all kinds of different shit, but I can tell you this. I got lots of people that make hash, and we talk numbers, and I'm confident that what we're doing is benefits worth it.
Absolutely.
It's totally worth it. And I guess that depends on your market and how much you're getting for your hash, but for where we're at, it's worth it.
I want to talk to about your decision to air dry your full melt 6-star and versus rosining everything else, and what your experience has been with freeze dried material versus air dried material throughout your career as a Hashishian.
So are we talking just about freeze-dried stick star versus air-dried stick star?
Yeah, let's start with that and start unpacking what a freeze dryer actually is doing to the resin and what your thoughts on
Sure.
that are.
I really prefer the air-dried. I think it's like the purest of the terp expression, and I think that there's something to it. It's got a we throw this term cure around far too much, but it really does. It's got a real cure effect to it. My friend would call it treatments. My Rasta buddy, we give it treatments, heat and cold treatments. Just those subtle. We keep it really cool in there, like really cold, like 40 to 45 degrees cold, and very dry. But there's little fluctuations, and all of that I think helps to kind of solidify the way that it comes out, and that's why it looks so beautiful. You can see those pictures. I mean, they're gorgeous, right?
Absolutely.
And that's why I also like the sieving. The sieving will give you that look. I've done microplaning. I lose too much on my fingers. I cut myself. I don't think it comes out as pretty, and I just don't think it's necessary if you're doing it this way.
Yes,
this is clearly the superior way to do it, in my experience. I have freeze dried 6-star. Most of the time, once I freeze dry it, I squish it because I just don't like the texture of it. Sometimes it looks really cool because it lightens it up. The freeze dryer is going to make that product lighter, so it looks a little more appealing in that sense. But it's a little too granulated for me. It's small and sticky and coarse, and it doesn't have that watery kind of look that I like. And I think the terps are definitely diminished when you do that. I mean, you can't say that they're not. To what degree, debatable. But as is everybody's process and how they're using those tools. So you can't expect that it's all going to be the same. But so yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that.
Absolutely. Have you had an opportunity to run much cured material? And have you ever found, sort of building on that, have you ever found a cultivar varietal that you enjoy better cured than live?
Oh man, we used to only wash dry material. We used to only wash trim.
Yeah.
That's how long I've been making hash. We only used to wash trim.
100%.
First time somebody said they're washing buds, I screamed. Like, I can't do that, man. My pounds are worth $4,000 fucking dollars. I'm not washing that motherfucker. It's hash is $20 a gram. It don't make sense. Anybody that's telling you that they did that is lying.
It's like you threw all your weed into a bucket of water. What?
At some point, when hash became very expensive and weed became very cheap, that became like, oh yeah, this is great, and I don't have to pay trimmers too. But there was a time when it was the opposite. So just always keep that in mind. You'll give people a fucking frame of reference. It's like it's always been this way. Markets change, and you got to change with them. So having said that, I've got great returns, got beautiful hash off of trim. I think that I think it's just science, right? Like when you're fresh frozen, material is going to be less stable. That's why people like it, because it's not stable. Cool, gooey hash you can play with, and that's what people want. Now, if you dry and cure your plant matter, the resin that comes off that is going to be more stable. It's not going to be as gooey or whatever. And a lot of this, again, keep in mind, is it's definitely going to change the terpenes. I mean, that's the benefit of the fresh frozen. You're getting more of that. And for some plants, that's great, right? Because you really want to capture that. Other plants, that's not so great. Some plants get better when you dry them. And I've also had cases where, like, I don't necessarily, I like to smoke this blueberry that we run. It's my smoke. Sometimes we got to wash it. Or I've got trim of it or whatever, right? And I would prefer to actually do a mix run, but use that dry wash. If I have to wash the blueberry, I want to wash it dry. I don't want to wash it fresh frozen. It'll come back better. And I've actually found that mixing dry blueberry with fresh frozen glue makes a great wash. And it improved my yields Like if I washed them separate, it was one thing. When I washed them together, I actually got a bump. And
I've never heard of anybody doing that.
I don't know why that happened. I like to do experiments, man. I'm not looking for somebody to teach me everything. I want to go fucking learn. I want to experiment and try and let's solve this problem. I got this plant, I got this material. I'm not going to give it to some BHO guy. No offense, but what can I do with it? How can I get this yield up where it doesn't just kick us in the fucking balls for washing it fresh frozen? Because there's an economic equation there, and you can really get hurt if you're not careful.
How long?
I think there's something to that, by the way. I think there's a little hidden formula that you just maybe gave somebody out there in the context of that little mix and that opinion, because you blew my mind, and I think it's got to set in a little bit there as to what you just said, that the quality and the yield can go up by mixing fresh frozen and cured material and getting better terpene profile. That's literally never heard that from anybody ever spoken. So
maybe nobody's tried it.
no, I know, but I love it. I love that you've tried it and you're like, I have this strain and doing it this way, and it's better. So amazing. Sorry, Jameson, I cut you off, but it blew my mind a little bit. I had to acknowledge it.
No, I mean it leads really into something we talk about on every show, which is resin mixing and mixing pre and post wash, and clearly that's something you do, Kaya. How long have you been doing that? Like, and have you found that you prefer certain things mixed pre-wash versus washed separately and then pressed and combined?
So that little experiment was really born out of necessity. I'm gonna be honest. It's not something that I would just fucking do. It's kind of contrary to what I like to do. And I don't necessarily like mixing hashes either. I think it gets muddled, I look at each terp as kind of that's that plant's song, and you wouldn't, I mean, if you're a good DJ, sure, but you're not playing two songs directly over the top of each other, right? The notes get all fucked up and weird. So I generally don't like to do that. I prefer single source, single flavor, and that's that. And I've, but I think that, maybe if you made a blend that was really dope, awesome, artisan blends, maybe that's a cool little niche that develops going forward. But I think as it relates to blending the materials when you're washing them, again, man, like the blueberry it's a smoke strain. It tastes good in the joint. It's got those secondary terpenes, right? And what we know about the monoterps and the secondary terps and the head site and how all that works, right? The ones that don't wash, they're still putting off those terpenes. So maybe just having their those extra terps in the water is doing something as it blends with whatever I'm washing it with. In this case, the glue.
What are your thoughts on resin color as the resin or rosin will cure out? Like we're experiencing, or I've experienced with different phenotypes that one will cure and stay very white, and one will cure into a darker color. What do you think is actually happening inside that rosin to create that? Is it a terpene that's changing that color?
That's a really interesting question, because I've witnessed it myself. And it actually used to really bother me that people chased so much of the color thing, because I always found that the stuff that had more color was more terpy. But people got away from that. But also the more terpier stuff was generally yielding less, and then you could compound stuff, right? So the blueberry, if I wash it by itself, it goes from blueberry to rubber. It's fucking gross. I hate it by itself. Cookies and cream flowers, but wash that stuff and it concentrates and creates this whole new incredible terp profile. So I think it's really hard to make a generalization. But definitely, the terps, I don't know so much that it has anything to do with the color of the material, whether it's purple and got anthracite in it, or anything like that. And if you're, if it's not something, that you put on a plant, or, contamination or something, right? Could also be, again, kind of the thing people got upset with was the age of it. How mature is it? Sometimes that can sting you. Sometimes it can reward you. If you pull something that really needs that extra time to develop that head, and it doesn't, you're going to get slapped in the yield category. But if you wait too long, you get slapped in the color category. So I think if I had to put my finger on it, I would definitely say it mostly has to do with when that plant material was harvested, and the color inside of that trichome. And I've seen, purple hash comes from trichomes that have purple inside that little circle, inside the head of that deal. And I've rarely seen that. I've seen pinks in it, and they'll make pink hash. And I really hadn't seen any of that till fairly recently in my hash washing stuff. And it's pretty cool. I don't know that it's the terpiest stuff, but that's a whole different variation on color.
Yeah, and I definitely have found that purple anthocyanin that leaves a bit of a char on the quartz, more so than something that's not, in my experience, as so far. I wanted to ask you a question about yields. Or, sorry, go ahead, Kaya.
No, my kid's just waiting.
I wanted to ask you a question about yields, and I ask everybody who comes on that I get a chance to, do you really think that when we as hash makers talk about our yields and how we calculated them, we're comparing apples to apples, when you have a salt grower that could be not watering for the final 3 days of the plant's life, and then you could have a living soil grower growing in a bed with blue mats that keep the soil wet all the way up till harvest. Like, do you feel that those minor variables don't make a big difference in the big scheme of things, or do you think that those are variables that could really skew hash numbers when we're trying to talk to each other about what we're doing?
Oh, well, I actually think this is really actually a great question, because that's your percentage coming back is less than half of the equation. You tell me your yield, great, that's wonderful. But did you just get a quarter pound off of one plant under one light? And now you got an 8% yield? Fucking great. Do the math on what the yield was and what you're getting on square footage. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Nobody fucking even talks about it.
That's true. Yeah.
Nobody talks about it. You know what I mean?
There's a new number that needs to be put out, which is a grams per square foot that adds into the off the press. How many, it's like grams of rosin per square foot of flowering canopy.
Right.
Is what it should be.
Right.
That's very
and I've got in my rooms, this is we've just had some crops that was like, holy shit, what just happened? Like, we thought we were killing it with that 8%er, and this one's 6%, but we just fucking, that room was worth twice as much. What happened? And that's the other part of the equation. And then is it generally when I'm using that math, let's go back. The other part of that is, right, like, how are you processing that before you wash it? Okay, because I'm taking a whole bunch of fucking extra steps, and every bit of what I put in there is sugary. There's no stems, and I've got it maximized for surface area. If you're just
and handling, let's not mention your handling process.
Right. So other guys may be throwing a whole bunch of shit in there, and that's not to their advantage. But I'm just saying my number might be from theirs, not because I grew it better or whatever, but just because of what was actually in there. There's so many variables to try to quantify it. It's kind of like,
absolutely. You're not comparing apples to apples.
To that end, do you almost think you have to observe how the harvest process and and then basically from there see how they're taking care of the plant before as they're processing it, because I feel like you could do the exact same process, but your handling of that exact same material, same farmer, same frozen time, whatever, could be very different. Because like I like you've got this SOP like
variable. Here's another variable. How many spins did you run it? What's your quality threshold? I could fucking spin it all day long and get my yield up and my quality down. You know what I mean? So how much space did you dedicate it to it? How much power did you dedicate to it? Which, I guess once you figure out your space, you're fine. But that's just how it works. I'm gonna mute this real quick and pick my baby up. So give me a break. Smoke break.
Yeah, no problem. And then Jameson, before we get to the next one, there was a question from the crowd. Oh, I love the baby.
What a cutie. Top 3 cultivars to wash. Yeah, great question, Kaya. So there's a question from the audience about your 3 favorite cultivars to wash, and we're about to kind of move into breeding and so yeah, I'd love to hear the answer to that question, or you can stay muted and we'll have a dab. We're gonna have a dab.
Yeah, we're gonna have a dab, and take your time with the baby, because I think I'm actually lucky in that my kid finally fell asleep because she was running around before that, and I thought she was gonna come in. So, but that's all good. I mean, that's actually something I want to get into a little bit later, and talking about family and cannabis, and not closing the door for that, because, well, yeah, it's not like we're shooting heroin. Although if you show somebody dabbing, everybody seems to think we're smoking crack or something. Especially when you pull out the torch. Like, Jameson, you haven't pulled out the Indux.
I've got it right here. I just had it out today. Some buddies came over, and I put it away. I find I can't continuously. It's more of like a leisurely dab thing for me to do it on the show. It's just too much. I just don't. It's too much loading.
Like, in what respect though? What do you mean? Like, unpack it a little bit. I want to know, because
That's a little bit of the sour animal.
So for me to manage an interview and run the Indux, I'm just dabbing is second nature. I can do it with my eyes closed, and running an Indux isn't. And you can get them. You can not turn it off and overcook it and get it too hot. And I'm still learning. Like Brian has it way more dialed than I even still have it, but I'm definitely getting close to it. But it's just I gotta learn. I gotta get more comfortable with it before I can run.
We got to do more coaching sessions together, live dabs.
Sure.
But that's the other thing too. Like, if I hit 2 or 3 of the Indux big dabs,
I get too stoned, and then you get quiet. Whereas you can hit hot dabs and after hot dab, and I'm okay. So.
Yo, somebody's ordering their first rig. Yo, listen to this. Look at this. And I'm gonna turn my mic off because I'm heating up my banger.
That's hype. That's hype.
Yeah.
Now we got to know who you're ordering from. Jameson's still loving on his hardcore toke.
Yeah, I'm proud.
Well, you're hitting the Mimsy though.
I can't. I have no 40. I don't have 45, so this doesn't work, right? I just don't. All I want to hit is this.
Are they in the mail?
They should be in the mail. I hope so.
Okay.
We've got a tracking number. They are in the mail.
If you're watching, make sure those are in the fucking mail.
The Indux is worth the money.
He's watching.
If you like hot dabs, you can still achieve what is a hot dab with an Indux. The lung feel is a little bit different, but once you transition over to the Indux, I think that it's a lot easier on your lungs. And yeah, as far as being able to really unpack a terpene profile, you can stretch one dab into, Brian and I, really enjoyed going through and sharing what would be one dab for either of us. And it was more than enough for us to pass back and forth and sort of go through the variables of sort of the front end monoterps and then through the main portion of the dab. And then what's really kind of the most interesting part for me is that when the oil turns a darker color, typically, it doesn't taste as good when you're dabbing, but the index is such a gentle heating element that it still maintains like a really unique and attractive profile, even when it's sort of darker. So it's pretty nice to use. And that's the most medicated part. Like the index really punches you at the end for sure.
It's probably because it activates the higher boilers and you actually get to experience the higher boilers instead of them either just being like wasted in the bottom of your banger or like you reheat and you overheat them, and it probably just allows you to experience that,
Because if you look at like, I forgot to send you the instructions back, but they're online. But it shows you like the heating element, and like it's such a slow raise, like on temperature. So like, whereas when you're dabbing, you go from like top down. You're looking at like maybe a 10-second, maybe 30-second if you have really good quartz and you've kind of gently heated it, kind of range where it's like good to dab at and you've got good terpenes, right? But
that's why I
like,
feel like the heat gun you build into that range, it's a bit better, but it's still you drop off. But like with the Indux, it's just like a steady.
yeah, no, you're looking at like 2 minutes within your dabbing range.
Yeah,
So
that's pretty
yeah.
high. But
So I'll bring the question back for us. Here.
Kaya, are you before the other question? Do you prefer rosin or melt? Oh, you got to unmute yourself. It should be bottom left, I think.
Boom.
Boom.
Okay.
You're good.
It kind of depends.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm chilling at home and I got my nice banger, I like melts.
Yeah.
If I'm in a hurry or traveling, I like rosin. Rosin's. I mean, listen, let's obviously rosin is far more convenient.
100%.
Easier. It's a more accessible product to the end user. It's easier to keep and carry. It's easier to operate. It's easier to clean.
Yeah.
But as far as effects go, I prefer the hash.
Appreciate it.
Sometimes the terps can even be better with rosin, or just different. I don't know what better, but different. So it can be a different experience. But yeah, for effects, I like the well-rounded. I think you lose a little bit of something when you rosin it.
I agree. There's something with melt that's not there, and it just comes down to a convenience factor where if somebody was maybe prepping your dabs and just dealing with the cleanup the whole time, you might want to smoke melt all the time, but it gets to it's a bit time consuming for sure.
Yeah, and like if rosin gives me a body high, the melts maybe give me a body high, but also make my skin feel warm. Like
I was gonna say, I feel like it has like that other medical effect to it.
Yeah, there's something just a little bit different there, and it lasts longer.
Yeah. So
my top hash strains,
Yeah, your favorite.
it really depends. What we're talking about. I mean, like GMO is amazing. Nothing yields like it. I like that. That feeds my family. And I really like the hash, to be honest. It's good hash. And I've got some other strains that really rip. They're super fast and they put out. I really like this pink lemonade that we play with. And I got that cut, was actually gifted to me by my wife's cousin. He's down in Mendo. They run a little op down there called Malama the Roots. And, they're all regenerative KNF up in the hills. And I've given him a bunch of my strains, and he shared this one with me. And I had no idea. Like, this thing is just lightning fast and dumps, 8% plus. So it's a good one. And the terps on it are like grapefruit. It's just, and the hash is like pink. It's got like a pink hue to it. It's a killer one. I really like the Hamma Hamma. It's a really great plant, easiest plant in our stable to grow, and it can be flour or hash. And it's again, that's one of those ones where once you put in how much flour did you get before you into that equation, it's like the number explodes.
Yeah,
and it's because it's yielding a lot of plant material.
Yeah,
and it's hardy, so I really like that one. Strawberry yogurt just makes the room smell incredible. And
all right, I have questions. I have questions loaded up about all these. So what I want to start out with is you talk about and shout out Lemon Hoko for being here, but you talk in a lot of your interviews about your mentor and connecting with Mel in the early days on this online forum that I never heard of called Northwest Green Thumb. And I just wanted to learn a little bit more about when you connected with Mel and what that relationship looked like, and was it something where you hit it off and were tight right away, or did you sort of take time to grow together?
Yeah, no, he was the old timer on the forum, and he was breeding, and he was doing something else that was really really dope at the time. He was using predator bugs for issues in his garden, and everybody else was like, fucking spray it, and you don't want to use bugs, you get bugs on your bug. Like people were trying to ridicule him actually online for what we use now as our IPM. And so he was just ahead of everybody in that sense. And so I linked with him. He had me over to his house. We had a little session, and we just got to talking and sharing stories. And we talked about my dad, and he just said, "Hey man, you got really good genetics." I think we had run into Mel. You got to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that we actually met after this competition. We had this competition during the medical days. It was the Tacoma Hemp Cup, and there was like 76 judges, and I don't know, a dozen entries, and I ended up winning. And I think that's Mel had entered in that cup. Anyway, so we got together, and he just said, "Hey, you got this history of animal husbandry and breeding and stuff in your family, and you got good genetics, man. You should start doing some breeding stuff." And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds like a great idea." And then went and penciled some numbers and thought, I don't know how this is going to work. And he came over one day and looked at my room, and it was a mixed room with all my mom's stuff. And he said, "Man, you should." Actually, I think it was might even been some outdoor stuff too. And he just said, "Hey, man, you should pollinate all of this." He said, "It will take you 3 years to sell it all in seed form." He said, "But you'll make 3 times as much money, and you'll establish yourself. This will be like your first thing." And I said, "Okay." He said, "It's going to take you a while, right? It's going to keep you busy." So he gave me a male. It was the Alien Kush F2 male, and that pack of seeds he had won in an auction. And it was bred, that pack of seeds was bred by Ras Kaya. And there's more backstory from where the alien comes from, and that kind of goes back to obsolete Obs for Prez. And but he got this pack on an auction. I think he paid $1,500 for these Alien Kush F2 seeds. He popped them, and he gave me the sister to the male. And so I went and did the breeding, and I grew the female, so I kind of knew what was what. And and it was really cool to see. Well, after I harvested the seeds, I changed my whole room from being production style. I had hydroponic stuff going, and really high tech stuff in the grow room. And I went to bat wings, organic soil in 3-gallon pots, just to like bring down like the variables, and so that I would know kind of like the real baseline grower can do this. You don't have to have high tech shit. This is going to be the results that they get. And Mel was giving me guidance in this. So I really dumbed down the room, and I had 10 crosses that I had made. I had 10 lights in my room. I did 10 females of each one under each light. So I had 100 plants in there. And in these 3-gallon organic pots, and I would take them outside on my deck and I would take a picture of them like every week or two. This was all documented on the Northwest Green Thumb. It was the usual suspects that line them up against the wall and take pictures of all the phenos. And like, so you knew what the mom looked like, you knew what the dad looked like, you knew what the sister to the dad looked like, you knew what I liked about the plants, what I didn't like about the plants. And then I crossed it into my 10 strains that I've been crushing the game with. And and then I grew all these out and I took pictures of them all the way through and documented it before I released my seeds. And that was the beginning. And back then too, it was like you had to give the front your seeds to these shithead European guys that were just, they paid you maybe the first time to get you to have your buddies send some, and then they fucked everybody. That was the game. And I got most of my money back, but sometimes they fucked me. I'm not gonna lie. I like to admit to getting got, but that was the game. But and really the shittiest part of it was they would have forums, and I would go in and fill these forums with incredible content. And then when they fucked everybody, they closed down the site, and all the content was gone. They actually closed down that Northwest Green Thumb, and I contacted the guys who ran it, and this was like 2 years ago, and paid them money to turn the site back on. And they did, to their credit. Super cool guys, some twin brothers, young kids. They actually had the idea to do cryptocurrency. When Bitcoin first came out, they said on the site, hey, let's do Canacoin. And I was like, fuck yeah, let's do it. And a bunch of the people on the site were like, no, the feds will come and raid our website. And it was a whole fucking whoop-de-whoop. And their stupid asses wish they would have done it because those two twins are stupid rich. They own a company called Open Source Steel. They sell, I don't know, do you know Open Source Steel?
Fuck yeah. I know those dudes for sure. I've ordered stuff from them. Like I built a lab around their steel.
So, I don't know. There's another connection for you. I'll give you another one here, freebie, since we're going down a little rabbit hole. You guys heard of Canacon? Okay. So
yeah.
this kid on the website there on the Northwest Green Thumb was claiming he knew how to blast stuff and whoop de whoop, and I had a bunch of extra shit, and he was asking me for it. I said, "Sure, man, come get it." So gave him some material to run. He blasts it, bring it back. Yeah, this is high grade whoop. We take it down to the dispensary, and they test it, and it comes back like toxic. And I'm trying to find the guy because I'm gonna hurt him. And his stepdad is the guy who puts on Canacon, and that guy helps him. There's a great video of him out there. His name is Nick Sharp. Great video of him basically saying in his pompous ass attitude that weed guys shouldn't be in the weed game. We should leave it to business guys, And this was the dumb fuck who was trying to claim that he knew how to blast stuff and ended up, like we caught it before it went out to patients, but I really wanted to hurt the kid. So that's the story behind Canacon. That's why you never fucking would catch me at Canacon. They actually tried to kick me out. We showed up at the one in Seattle to go harass him, and they must have given the dudes a picture, but they caught me at the door and threatened to arrest me with federal charges because it was on federal property. And yeah,
I could see you trying to sneak in wearing like a dress and like wearing like a little thing and being like, "Oh, I'm just here to see the conference. I swear I'm not Ras Kaya."
Man, hey, do you know the story of I think his name was Dudis, the Jamaican guy that hid out dressed up like a woman he was running the big coke trade and was like he was killing motherfuckers left and right, and he was just sitting out in the open dressed as a woman.
Yeah.
It's funny. It reminded me when you said that.
Kaya, I want to ask you, like,
shit.
just kind of leading in from what you're saying. How do you define a breeder versus somebody who's a pollen chucker? Like, where do you draw that line in your own definition?
I mean, I think pollen chuckers know they're pollen chuckers. There's a lot of them out there. I mean, they're seed makers,
mm-hmm.
and I think there's obviously a market for it. People want access; they want to play with it. it's intimidating. Like not everybody wants to go out and buy a fucking a speedboat or something you can take out in the ocean. Some people want to try the rowboat first.
Yeah.
And I think so. There's a place for it. I'll preface things by saying that, so there's no hate or malice from me regarding any of it. I think if you're into ganja, you're on the team. Even if you're, got some other faults, like let's look past that. Let's focus on something that's a uniting thing, and let's work on the other shit. Let's test your stuff, guys. It's the funnest part. You're missing out. but I think the difference is, and again, my mentor basically said, if you're going to get into this, you have to be working your lines, and the guys who I think are really poised to do good works in the future, nobody has the breeding stock that they do, right? Because they haven't taken multiple strains and bred them out multiple generations and stabilized them, and now they know what they're working with and how it interbreeds. There's very few people that have done that. I don't even know that I'm quite comfortable enough to say that I'm at that level.
That says a crazy amount, by the way. The fact that you would even say that about yourself, but I feel like that's like anybody. The more you know about something, the Dunder with
Got it.
Yeah. Anyways, the Kroger effect.
Well,
the more you know.
Sorry.
What? Dunning-Kroger. Dunning-Kroger. The more you know about something, the less you feel you know actually about it, and it's like, I think that's quite, humbling to hear you say that, because I would consider you an absolute expert in breeding. So sorry, continue. I just had to acknowledge that.
I mean, listen, nature's an expert in breeding. What we're doing is we're really we're doing selecting, and what separates one selector from the other more than anything is, again, what have you seen? You know what I mean? What have you touched? What do you know about herb? Like really know, how much different terpenes have you smelled, and good examples of things, and classic things, and you've got a position to really talk from that. So that's kind of what separates people. If you can do that and you're working the lines, I mean, if you're just working lines and you don't know shit from Shinola, it don't matter, right? But if you know that and you're working the lines, you got something, and there's people that are doing that. Shout out Archive, shout out Green Source Gardens, and there's a whole slew of other people. Those are some of my favorites that really do work.
So what does testing across look like for you, Kaya? When you have something and you say, okay, I think I have something, I've got to put it through its paces. What does that entail?
I'll come back to that.
Okay.
First, I got to say a little bit about the pollen checker stuff.
Go for it.
So, and again, I was just writing this paper on it. So, like, back in the day, certain herbs were found in certain locations, right? It wasn't traveled too well. Sometimes it was, some weren't. People knew what it was. There was a process to verifying plants. And there wasn't this big exchange. Now, the big exchange has been good and bad, right? This big opening up and access to genetics has been good and bad. Lots of disease and stuff went rampant, but and good strains got lost, and some people were preservationists, and God bless them for keeping stuff around and not, everybody didn't throw everything out and just run cookies in the year. You know what I mean? Like, so there's something to that, but I think that this name game thing has really just done a disservice. When I do breeding, I think about, I breed with stuff that I really kind of know. I rarely bring stuff in that I don't know, something that I haven't ran and flowered and smoked and enjoyed by itself before I breed to it. So that's kind of the thing that I just don't like about it. I just think it waters things down and muddles things up, and that can leave bad taste in people's mouths. I'd be really disappointed if I got somebody handing me some seeds and say, hey, this is apple fritters, and it's like, it's got fucking nothing to do with apple fritters. I don't know what you're talking about here. I don't know. Just using that name.
Well, I mean, on that note,
arbitrary example.
what do you think about untested F1s? Like, do you think that they even belong in the market, or even if somebody tells you it's an untested F1, or do you think that that's not responsible to release?
I don't know. I mean, who am I to say that it should be? You know, like it's people want what they want. You know, but you know, F1s are great. Like F1s are what you want. Yeah, and again, it depends what you're doing, right? So
100%.
you know, some people are running fields and they need autoflowers and they need them to be all girls.
Yeah.
You know, not going to be all girls. Gotta go check them. But you know what I mean? Like, and a lot of the stuff that people want isn't out there. But, you know, if you're looking to find a mom that's really, really dope and clone it out and run that game, F1s are where it's at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you know, make sure it's really an F1.
Mm-hmm. Or if it's a polyhybrid, like for example, that was
poly all day right now.
Yeah, that was to the point.
I didn't mean to say F1. What I meant to say was untested polyhybrids, which are getting released all the time. That was more to my point of what I'm seeing a lot of today.
Again, some people want to drink $2 Chuck. Some people have a refined palate. Some people want the prestige of having a bottle of Cristal. It's all over the place, right? It can't all be one thing. You know what I mean? Not everybody wants to get my packs of seeds with all the work I've put in them. They don't see the value. They don't understand it. It's not for them. I get that. And for those people, just having access, some people don't even want to fucking grow them. They just want to buy them. They want the fucking stickers and they're like, there's a whole generation of kids. I mean, I was growing up with some baseball cards, but baseball cards are cool because I fucking played baseball. You got a whole generation of kids who grew up, no offense, I'm sorry, some of you younger kids played Pokemon and they were into collecting shit and they had Beanie Babies and all that kind of shit. And man, they just want the motherfucking sticker. I've had seed companies tell me like, dude, they don't really even care about the seeds, man. They just want the sticker. You know, and I'm like, fuck out of here, dude. You know how much work I put into this? You know, like people really like are on that. And he's like, yeah, dude, like that's, you know, they're buying them up and they save them and they collect them. And I get it. It's cool. It's a thing. It's a subculture. You know
that. Yeah. I mean, I think that. I mean, I think that's a fair.
I want it in my garden.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. So I wanted to talk about testing crosses. You know, when you work on new projects, what does that look like? Putting that through the paces and you know, do you have it opened up in different areas? Are you looking at it under in multiple locations, or how do you go about that?
You know, it really kind of depends. You know, sometimes we have our idea where we want to take stuff, and if it don't work out, then you just don't go there. You go a different pathway. But at our facility, we've got full outdoor, primitive greenhouse, light depth, light assisted greenhouse. We've got indoor environments, and we run stuff in all those environments to find out what thrives where. Again, we're in year 3 of the farm, so we're still figuring out like, okay, what should we only run indoors? What 2-plant or 3-plant combination works best indoors? What outperforms everything in that greenhouse? What works best in this part? You know, and we're doing soil tests in the different parts of our yard. And shout out Aligned Intentions. He's a Elaine Ingram student, and he's been coming out and doing all kinds of great soil testing and work for us. So the answer is, you know, we're testing it in all those different environments, but generally the ones that get ran like that are stuff that we've already selected as keepers. You know, again, when I did my first seed release, it was, you know, 10 females of every strain, and I ran it once, and I took pictures of all of it, and I documented what was what, and that was probably as thorough as I ever got with it, mostly because people just didn't appreciate it. I don't know that they went and looked, you know. It's
So
really kind of shitty.
Yeah.
You know, they want to see somebody with a cool tattoo and some hype stuff, and that's all it fucking takes. You know, nobody really cared to do the journaling and look at that kind of stuff. You know, and I don't know that anybody's really doing it anymore. I certainly don't do it like I used to. But I run them. You know, I run them in my back. I run all kinds of plants in my backyard, and we run them at the facility. And if stuff stands out, you know, that's the stuff we're going to breed to next. And I, you know, I send stuff out too. I've got, you know, I don't advertise this. I shouldn't even say it on this show just because I know people are going to send me DMs like, hey, can I be a tester? No, you can't. If you haven't known me long enough to already be a tester, you can't be a tester. But, I got people I send stuff to, and they send me back pictures.
100%. 100%.
Instagram kind of changed things. It was really dope because you could send people shit and they just blow up their whole feed with your stuff, and you're like, "Fuck, there you go."
Yeah, 100%.
That was it. But I try to run everything before I put it out. I want to see it myself. To me, that's the funnest part of it. Like, why would you make babies if you can't raise them? If you can't look at them and see what you did, And that first room that I did really taught me. It was amazing, right? Because I knew all 10 of these females that I bred to, but I didn't know what the male was going to do to it. And I could see what the male did in those different combinations. And in some of them, it was the same. Some of them, they did something fucking different, and it really, like, kind of blew my fucking mind and opened up my thoughts of what was possible. And the more I get into this legal space, the more I can expand and do testing. And I'm actually kind of rethinking my whole philosophy on breeding, and I might write a book about it. But just kind of briefly, just there's different ways that you can open up and close down strains. And I think there's different techniques to doing that.
What do you mean by open up and close down, Kaya?
So when you breed an F1 and an F1, two completely unrelated strains, right? You're going to get a certain split: 25 like the mom, 25 like the dad, 50 down the middle, right? And then when you take that next progeny and you breed it together, you can do it in different ways, right? You can either select one female and one male, and that would be considered narrowing the gene pool, or you can open it up. You can take 10 females, 10 males, or you could take 10 females and 2 males, or one, any of these different combinations. And that's what I've been kind of tripping on, right? And how to do that. And so maybe you run 20 females, and then you cull out of that 10 and you only keep the keepers, right? And then you've got males in there. Kind of that's a whole different ball of wax to unfold. I generally like to keep it kind of closed on the male side, or maybe do 2 or 3, but it just depends, right? So you can either open that up, right, and see really what's in there, what's in those genes. Let me see all the different expressions,
Yeah,
right? And you can continue to open that up, or you at some point you start to close it down and narrow those pools. So the way in which I do that, the way in which other folks are doing that, I think there's a lot of exploration that can be done, and I think we can find out a lot about kind of what's in our plants and their potential by doing that, and to do that on scale, in environments where you're getting consistent results. And so there's not a lot of variables. That's kind of a different component, but to me, that's people get excited about all this CRISPR and genetic mapping and shit, and I think there's tools within that can help narrow these kind of projects down. There's actually some really neat technology, but I think just being able to explore that on scale with people that have an eye for a plant and a nose for the plant is that's where in 20, maybe even 10 years from now, you'll be leaps and bounds ahead of what everybody else is doing. Fucking around with polys.
Yeah.
Standing around like, this sucks. What the fuck happened to our weed? Like it's gonna be bad. It's gonna be, and you won't know boy from girl, and it's gonna be nothing.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about tissue culture, and that's become very popular recently, and you had a really interesting comment about the regenerative properties of breeding, and how you believe that sometimes the solution to cleaning or solving problems that tissue culture is attempting to learn how to solve is just breeding your way out. And I wanted you to expand on that a little bit.
Yeah. We actually did some tissue culture on some old stuff just to see what would happen. And I've done talking with my guy Bamboo, experiments with bringing plants out of artificial light environments and putting them in natural environments, to reinvigorate them when they have genetic degradation, so to speak. which is a whole nother ball of wax. But the idea behind tissue culture is to cure those kind of things, right? So you've got a plant that's 10 years old and it's went through all kinds of stresses and the epigenetics have changed and it's a different plant than what you remember. It doesn't produce the same. Maybe the terps don't smell the same. You know, I've had it happen. I've seen it happen. So how do you turn all those epigenetics back on? Well, with the tissue culture, you get the meristem and it resets the whole thing. And as I was talking with Mike Hydro, he does the stuff for Jungle Boys, and he was actually up here in Seattle working in the lab, and he's the one that did the work for me. And really cool, super intelligent guy, and he's just walking me through the process and everything they got to do, and I'm thinking about what we're trying to achieve with it, and it just kind of dawned on me that the natural form of this is breeding. And maybe it changes a little bit, but there's always going to be some stuff in there that's almost a genetic copy. We look like our parents, and if you pop enough of those seeds, you're going to find the one that's pretty much like that one, but it's going to be more vigorous. It's not going to have all the epigenetic issues from years of whatever happening, or being in contact with a pathogen or disease. So I don't know. That's just to me that's the equivalent of doing it. And I think that I've still never seen an operation where they're taking tissue cultures and making enough clones to fill a room, and I just think that that's all just some kind of fallacy. Maybe one day they'll be able to do it, but I really have not seen it.
Yeah. No,
and I think if you are doing it, you've spent so much fucking money that your feet are off the ground, and it's gonna take you a long time to catch up to your money. And I've just a different way.
I wanted to ask you about when was it that you specifically started breeding for mechanical separation or hash production? Like, what year was that? Like a conscious search?
I want to say I bred my first crop in 2012, 2013. And almost immediately, I think maybe it was just because some of the crosses that we had made came out like so frosty. That alien Kush male did some crazy shit. We're looking at these plants like, holy fuck. It grew like it grew strange. The bud structure is not marketable. But look at the crystals on this, and it was like, I love hash anyway, let's wash it, So it was almost immediately that we were separating and picking out and leaning towards stuff that we wanted to wash.
So for somebody that's been doing it for as long as you've been doing it, and I feel as though, right now it's very in vogue in the industry to be selecting and breeding for hash and trying to optimize those yields. Do you feel, as somebody who's been doing it for a long time, that the plant is at its maximum, or do you feel there's more room for this plant to produce more resin on its on its structure?
Oh, I definitely think there's room for growth, and I think there's room also in the way that we cultivate it, and maybe some tricks, light tricks that we can do to the plant indoors. There's all kinds of stuff that is yet to be discovered. I think the I know some people that breed for flower, and they're not lying, but I think some of these folks that say that they're breeding for hash, they're not. What they're doing is they've made some seeds, they sent them out. Somebody reports back, hey, this turned out great for hash. Hey, I'm breeding for hash now. You guys see the number? I breed for hash. Look, this one yields, and they're not collecting hashy strains like I hunt hash strains, and putting them through cleaning protocols and bringing them in my breeding program, and then breeding my special male to those hash strains, and then taking those prodigies and breeding those together. They're not doing that. They're not doing that. I'm doing that. Some of it gets released, some of it doesn't. Some of it works, some of it doesn't. I'm still learning how to how to do that, how to translate those two things together, you know, without it being just serendipitous or luck. You know, a lot of it has to do with your selection. You know,
Yeah.
man, you could take that pack and run them and find a couple of keepers in there. You know, maybe only one of them will wash. Some of them won't.
Yeah.
Even within the strain itself, you'll find stuff that isn't it. You know, so it's all, again, it goes back to your selection too. And you know, I've told that to some of these big operations. You know, like, you can buy my seeds, but you don't know how to pick the winner necessarily. You know, like, let's pick a winner together. It's good for me too, because I don't want you to pick the number 2 strain out of a pack. I don't want you to. I know what number 2 strain is, and I know it looks fucking cool, and it might even smell good, but stone sucks, or you know, whatever the fuck it might be.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
let's find the real good one so that it gets represented right. You know, like, no, we're gonna have our, no offense again, we're gonna have our extract team. You know, they're gonna put it in fart carts and find the winner, and it's like,
No, man, we see it happen all the time. Like,
just stop. We're all gonna be in fart cart hell.
so let me ask you this, you know, as far as selection goes, and your comment on that, you know, other than examining these glands laid in flower and of course washing the material, are there any indicators that you've learned that uh, earlier in the flowering cycle or later in veg that you can tell or know that this is going to be a plant that I need to watch?
You know, generally, I try to just let them all go. I've tried to reserve my judgment just because I've been burned sometimes in culling plants. Um, I've selected stuff and then smoked it and it was fucking trash. So I really try to be disciplined about holding out judgment. On the other hand, you kind of got to be harsh. So, you know, if stuff doesn't have the right structure, even, it's going to get cut out early because I just can't deal with it later on. It's going to tempt me. You know what I mean? But goddamn, the terps are so good. But it won't root and it grows like shit. You know, and now you've got just something cluttering up your room. So I'm pretty maniacal when it comes to selecting, you know, for all those other things. But if once you clear all those hurdles, um, you know, then it's a different, you know, it's a whole different ballgame when you're dealing with things that are all kind of winners.
So I want to talk about, you mentioned already that early Afghani hash plant and how that kind of set the stage for your desire to recreate that, and looking through the uh, alien work for the coffee. Was there an inspiration for the Hammer Hammer, or what was the origin behind that?
You know, Phil, actually, my partner out at the farm, and we went to junior high together. He's a cancer survivor. Um, he just adopted, and he's a new dad, and just, you know, super cool dude. He actually selected from some seeds from Jinx, that 9-pound hammer. It's not Jinxie's cut or anything, and it is just a super fast finisher, and it grew great. Has a really kind of a crazy terp to it, and the Platinum Alien OG that we picked, when I ran all the females, that Platinum Alien OG was the most like coffee, and it was really, really weird because they kind of had different lineage, but also some similar grandparents. But the plants were just incredible and massively yielding. You know, reminded me kind of like sour diesel stuff, but just with a deeper note in the terps, more cushy, and so, you know, again, just exploring the breeding projects. You know, we loved how those females look. Let's find a male from that selection, and let's put them on some of these females that we have. And I think the concept just behind picking that particular one was it was just fast. You know, we were looking to, you know, because coffee wants to go long, Platinum Alien OG, they want to go long. You know, 11 weeks, 12, they'll go, you know, they get big, like Chem Dog, right? Chem Dog number 4, it's got a big harvest window. You know, you can cut it down at 10, but you can also let it go to 12, you know, do some cool shit. You know, the high changes a little bit.
Oh, for sure.
Especially to me with stuff that you're burning versus washing.
Mm-hmm.
there's just a bigger harvest window that you can kind of slide through sometimes. Again, depending on the strain, but so being able to cut those down, that was kind of the idea behind that pairing, was to cut down the time, and it had that one had really beautiful purple to it, and that purple translated onto that same structure. So the Hamma comes out with the structure of that Platinum Alien OG, but it's got beautiful purple terps to it, purple color to it.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's very. What's the story behind the strawberry yogurt?
Man, this is wild. So our buddy had that cut for quite a while, and he had actually grown it out from bag seed. So he had strawberry kush, found some bag seed in it, lost the connect, decided, fuck it, I'm going to pop this seed, got a female, and he's a hydrocarbon guy. He actually ran a big lab for this company out here, and only had run it in hydrocarbons. And then during medical days, it was like smoke, right? Phil was running it for flowers. So when we got together out here at the farm, and they're like, well, we've got the strawberry one, we had a big row of it in the greenhouse. And they're like, do you think it's going to hash? And I went and touched it, and I'm like, fuck, I don't know, man. This one's really gooey, super terpy. I don't know. I don't think it's going to hash. And this was year one. We harvested the whole greenhouse and washed everything else, and everything else that was in there was, some of the stuff just wasn't working out really well. And the new stuff that we were trying, and that strawberry was just stunk up the room and was this beautiful white hash. And I called in Phil and the Bearded Kraken, and I'm like, boys. And they walked in and were like, what the fuck? Like the smell. And then they saw the hash and they freaked out, And I was like, we just started talking about it. I can't believe you guys never washed this before. Like, this is an instant. This is fucking amazing, And we had mountains of it because it was like the biggest. Did the best outside that year. So I think I had fucking, I don't know, 2.5 pounds of this hash sitting on the table. I'm like, this is fucking incredible. This is gonna make our year, guys. And maybe 2-3 people have that cut.
That's awesome. And that's and what is that in relation? And you back crossed that and made seeds. Is that correct?
No, I've bred into her.
Okay.
Yep. Have not. I can't back cross it because that's the original. It's from bag seed. So I'd have to outcross to back cross it. We could try to feminize it, but I just outcrossed it. I'm trying to remember because I didn't. I sent a bunch of these seeds to Hawaii to my family out there. I think we crossed it to coffee. Yeah, I'll have to go check my notes.
No worries.
But that's a good one.
I wanted to ask you about the Pez. I heard you talk about that in another interview, and I know in the Hashishin you asked if anybody had it out there, if you wanted it again, and did you ever end up finding it, and what was so special about it? Like I actually got to smell Pez in Jodri's garden, but like you said, I don't think that's the same one.
It's a different Pez. My top 3 strains all time was that Afghani hash plant was like number 3. Number 2 was this Northern Lights that this hippie girl brought to us one day. Big, huge fuck, man. The ounce was like massive, and like 3 of us had pitched in on it, and like we burned a bowl, and we're laughing so hard we couldn't even go to class. Like, fucked us up. It was amazing. Called her back, like, we need more, and she's like, it's gone, and like that's how the game was. But number 1 has always been Pez. And it's my understanding. So my good buddy Ghost has done a Cherry Lopez, and there's a Pez that's identified with like the Bay Area and Kyle Cushman, and I think he may have gotten it from Brett Bogue, who was with Apothecary. Interestingly enough, Brett Bogue, when he was first fucking with that plant, was up here in Gig Harbor, which is next city over from where I live. And side note, Shiloh, 3rd gen guys, also from that little town. Like, when I was in junior high, they were out here in high school.
That's crazy.
So weird. Exotic Mike was my neighbor for a while. Dungeon Vault Kid was my neighbor for a while. It's a really weird area.
That's crazy.
But so those guys all aside, when I was in college, up at Western, we would get this Pez, and it was purple, and sometimes, but it was more like a blue purple, and they called it the blue Pez, and then there was the pink Pez, which was more of a green one with pink pistils, but it had the most incredible smell, like candy and grapefruit and gas, just fucking incredible pot. And the story that we got was it was called Pez because it was from Lopez Island, which is one of the islands in the San Juans, and that it was taken out of a UW cancer research facility there. I don't know if it's true or not, but that was the story that we were told back in the mid '90s. And when I moved out of Bellingham and was down south in Tacoma, it was still around, and I had seen it last probably 10 years ago. There was one guy that had it, and pounds were, price of pounds was dropping from 4 to 30, 38, 36, 32. It was down to like 28, and this guy still wanted 36 for the pound. And I didn't know him. I had a friend that knew him. So I was telling my intermediary who was hustling, he didn't want to go get that pound from me because he couldn't make no money off it. He wanted to go buy the cheap pound and try to, or, the market price pound. But I was like, man, you have to go get that pound from that guy. And when you do, tell him I'll give him $1,000 for the clone, And he came back kind of him and hawed, and I'm like, all right, tell him again. Tell him I'll give him $2,000 for the clone. And the guy just would not fucking come off it. And then I think he got popped or whatever, and I just haven't. I've never seen it since. Sadly enough, during medical days, again, man, some young kids thought it would be cool, slap the name on it or whatever, or somebody fucked it up and they handed out a whole bunch of clones of this really shitty orange plant that had really mediocre terps. And then when I put the call out for fucking Pez, I got everybody running to me with this. I kept growing them out, and it was just all not it. And I've never seen it. So if you got Pez from
that's a shout out to the community. Yeah.
90s, I got that for you. Bring it to me. I miss it. I'll make it rain for you, please. You got to bring me first. I will recognize it.
To that end, do you think that you could, finding the right mother strains, or I should say base strains, do you think you could breed that terp profile back or create a new one? That
on that one I don't, because here's the thing. I really got lucky with coffee creating that Afghani, and I had a hint, right? Because they said this is Afghani hash plant, and I was breeding Afghani plants together. So there was something in there with the Pez, and I've heard it's a Northern Lights, maybe even just a phenotype of a Northern Lights, but I don't know what the ingredients were on that one. I don't know what was the original shit, and and I don't know that there's maybe, I don't know. The pink lemonade gives me hints of it, and it kind of looks like it, so maybe you actually kind of give me some ideas, because I hadn't really thought of doing it, but maybe I bang that into something and try to do something there, but I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because like maybe
that would be harder to reconstruct, I guess.
I was gonna say, because like as you said, if it's truly gone, and this just goes back to things I've heard you say in the past in other interviews, is like, if you truly want something, and that's why I was so excited to get your packs. If you truly want something, you want a terp profile, you want it to grow in a certain environment, you want it in whatever, it's going to take time and it's going to take effort, but you can get there, and I'll give you the starting, and I can help you with the starting. So it's almost like giving you your own advice of like,
right.
I think you probably could, because your passion, if it's your number one, it's like, how could the community then help you to find a good lineage that has that other complementing terp profile that you could breed together and find that the Kaya's Pez?
Yeah. I like it. It's a noble quest. I might just try it. I might try to find some cool Northern Lights and start playing with this pink lemonade and see what I come up with. I'm actually kind of inspired, so thank you for that. But I also think, again, Mel told me you only have so much time with the plant. When you think about how long it takes. I mean, again, you catch a clone in the mail, put that fucker in the dirt, get some pollen on it. You can get some seeds pretty quick, but that's not breeding. And if you're breeding, you have very limited time with plants, and you can't work on too much different stuff. You kind of got to focus. I mean, right, to do it right. For me to do it right, I get a new plant as an example. I get something new in. I got to grow it out by itself, just run it, and spend some time with it, smoke it, right? So we're 2 months in veg, 2 months in bloom, maybe more, plus a cure, so 3 months. Okay, I decide I like it. I put it into the breeder. If I got clones of it ready, maybe add another month, and then I get to breed it. I gotta bloom it out again, so there's another 2 months, and pollinate it, and then I gotta dry it. So now you're at 6 months, 7 months, and now I gotta take the seeds of that, and I gotta pop them and veg them and bloom them. Do you see how we're almost at a year to do one legit breeding project? So when somebody who doesn't smoke herbs and releases hundreds of feminized seeds of all these fucking crosses, fuck out of here, man. Fuck out of here with that. You don't have passion for the plant. It's not about the plant for you. It's not about progressing the plant. It's about progressing your pockets. I don't even know why somebody would I just want to make a legacy and just flood it with as many things that I made that I didn't put really any effort into. Like, I see through your fucking intention. I'm sorry to call you out. You know who you are. There's more than one of you out there. But it takes time to really sit and do things right. And you only have so much time, you know. Now do a proper back cross. Okay. Now you got to repeat that process to cube it 4 fucking times. So now, and life happens along the way, right? I just lost my mom. We just had the little baby 6 months ago. Like, life happens. I'm grateful. I got really good partners and good friends and people I can rely on to keep things going sometimes when I need them to. But I mean, you're talking just on that coffee cube box you're holding. That's 5 years in the making, minimum. And guess what? It was more than that, because it took me a couple of years to figure out how special coffee was, and to. But I'm always, again, Mel taught me, while I'm breeding these projects, there's ways to put breeding projects together to maximize that. In certain tents, you can do little breeding combinations that are kind of cheat codes to get you to the next level, of filial generations or back crosses or whatever, to keep those projects moving. But really, it takes time. So if I wanted to dedicate myself to, like, the Find the Pez project, and there may not be any gold at the end of the rainbow, um, and it's really dope when people follow you along and support you in your efforts. Shout out to anybody who ever bought a pack of seeds from us. Put a lot of that back into the land and the program and what I'm doing, and it gives me time to do that. And I'm a dad too, so I got mouths to feed, and I got other things I have to do. So you know I don't want people to think that all I do is just spend time in the garden. I don't. I live my life, and I parent my kids, and I coach, and I do all kinds of really dope stuff that has nothing to do with weed. And anybody that's just consumed by weed wholly, take a step back, take a hit, take a step back, and realize, like, yo, man, you got family members out there that need your time. You got relations, you got friends, you got all kinds of shit you got to do with your life that isn't just weed. Sorry, I know it's a weed show, I'm talking about weed, but just understand that. Understand when you're talking about how much you can put on your plate as a breeder or a hash maker or an entrepreneur or whatever it is you're passionate about. You don't let it consume you. Like, to a point where you don't have balance. And it's good you have passion, and I've made sacrifices throughout my life, and sometimes I was in more position to do that because it only affected me, but most of the time it affects other people too. So don't be in a rush to get there either. It's a journey. I've taken a much different path than a lot of people. And sometimes I kick myself for it, right? Because I'm not on this level of so-called success, but on other levels, I got them in spades, and I'm happy about it, and I've loved every step of the journey, and I'm super blessed to have all my people and my family at the same time. Um,
You know, wise words. I think it takes experience to say, I can only do so much, and I need to focus on the things that really truly matter and figure out what those things are. Um, and I think maybe as when we're younger, we think we can conquer the world and do whatever we want, and whether it's cannabis or anything in life, right? And then as you get older, you start to realize, okay, maybe I really need to focus this one thing, what that true passion is. And then, you know, as I said, okay, there's breeding, but then I can't, I can't dedicate then a whole other side of that because, yeah, this is my passion, but also there's a whole other side to me. And Jameson and I have talked about this a little bit, and actually RJ and I have talked about this in the past, and it's like, you know, you don't want it just to consume your life. You don't want to be only known for that one legacy, and you don't want to only be recognized in your entire life for that one thing, whether it be that you're a professional hockey player, a cannabis breeder, a glass blower, uh, whatever, you know, a doctor. You don't want to just be known for that because there is so much more. And we'll talk about this, I guess, in a moment, because then there's okay, Jameson tells me I should go into the family. So this is the perfect time for me to go into that. And this is, you know, double-sided question for you is where do you stand on cannabis and family? Not so much your upbringing, but what do you want to bring to your children with cannabis? Because for myself, I allow my children to view it as a medicine, and that it is a plant. There's nothing evil about it, and in fact, my kids are allowed to name a plant and quote unquote claim their plant. They don't have anything to do with it, but they can water it. But I haven't heard you talk a lot about your children and your family as far as cannabis, and what are your plans? Because as you said, you're a father now.
Yeah. Again, another big reason I switched from the hydroponics was because I was gonna have my kids with me. I was growing in my house, and I didn't want my kid to ever get into something that could hurt them. And organic soil was like, sweet. This is gonna be really easy. So I actually switched that over, and that was kind of like started me down this whole different pathway. And then I'm at the Living Soil Symposium, and I'm just taking all this in and just like you know putting it in me. And if I really being honest about it, we had a sovereign farming deal out here a couple of years back on our farm, and Minister Logan came out from Hawaii, KNF stud, and taught a class and stuff. And when I introduced him, I actually got kind of choked up because this lifestyle. I mean, it changed my life. I went from a hydroponic grower that had IBS and didn't know why I was sick all the time, and it was because I was just eating shit food, and to being an organic farmer. And I went to a naturopath, and he said change your diet, and I started studying the soil in my stomach and understanding how they're the same microbes and how they actually work, and they work together. And if I'm eating food that's grown in poison, it's going to poison my stomach. And um, everything started to catch and click at the same time, and it was like a revolution in my own life. And I at the same time I'm having just started this family. My oldest is 12 now, so this gives you a time reference. And we've just built on it, and you throw your whole heart into it because it's not just something that's exciting to you. It's an understanding of how this universe works, how our health works, how our happiness works, um, how plants work, and all of that really actually gives back to your spirit, and it's all connected. And so with my kids, in the cannabis space, I mean, I got pictures of them in the swimming pools with weed plants all around them, and you know, it's no different than the corn that we grow. And they'll, if they saw me consuming right now, they'd say daddy's doing his medicine. That's what they know. You know, we're only conditioned to use words or phrases or look at things a certain way because that's how they want it. And fuck that. These are my kids. I'm programming them the way I want to program them, and it's from my heart and my understanding of the universe, um, and they know that, and yeah, there's no hiding it. I mean, I don't, we're not hotboxing the kids. Their
No,
bodies,
yeah.
their bodies are young. They know smoking's not good. I tell my daddy smokes, but it's not good. Daddy shouldn't smoke. Um, we use tincture medicines. My wife makes her own elderberry syrup, and we're kind of all on that level, and being honest with our kids. And
I think that's the right way to do it.
my kids don't change the world if they're not like the next people to do it, and I don't mean like they got to be like, hey, it's them, but just in their own way, they're going to. They all got little dreadlocks, and they win awards at school for kindness, and they got their little good night, baby, I love you.
Oh, was that planned? That was perfect. Come on now.
But yeah, it's that's what it is. We raise them with the truth, and they know what the plant is, and they know what persecution of the plant is. My oldest one said, "Daddy, how come you and your friends nobody calls each other by their name?" And I was like, "Oh, we just that was there when you didn't want nobody to know your name. You didn't want to know nobody's name. It made you liable, really, and you guys don't know my name, to this day, right? That's not my name.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ross is short for Rasta, and the other stuff I'm just not gonna spell it out for what it is. But even in medical days, I would walk into the medical shops and they check everybody's ID, but people knew me, so they never checked my fucking ID, and that kept me safe. I've been kidnapped. I operated at a very high level in this thing, and so like I guess I got a different level of security and eyes about myself that, and a lot of it's conditioned away now. When I stepped out and became I don't know, an advocate or an activist for medical cannabis, I lost a lot of my privacy, and I had to change the way that I operated even. Just to protect and do things different. But I come from very old school stuff. It was ingrained in me from my dad about how to protect yourself and all that shit. So
absolutely, man, absolutely. It's got to be uncomfortable, stepping out like that and being a part of a activist.
I've been in drive-throughs at places, and people are like, "Hey, you're Kaya." It's like, holy shit, that's yeah. But my wife will look at me. We've been up skiing places, and somebody ski up to me and like, "Dude, I knew it was you." And I'm like, weird. It's weird.
I wanted to ask you about, you've said in other interviews, your wife's from South Kona in Hawaii, and you've got a connection out there, and you've not, been doing some consulting and some work out there with the growers. I'd love to hear more about that.
I've actually been out and I've seen some of the license deals. We actually applied for the license and kind of got screwed on that whole deal. It's another story for the books, but I've seen some of their operations and talked to those guys. Pretty cool stuff. One of my favorite teachers in the world, Logan, is out there in the same area, and he's really just taught me a lot about farming and turned me on to some really dope sources of knowledge. During the whole COVID thing, I seen it coming, and I pulled the kids out of school a week before their spring break, and we left to Hawaii. And then after spring break, they ended up closing schools, and so we stayed for a couple months over there. And we stayed with friends. We didn't want to travel, and we basically helped 4 of Tati's friends or family members build gardens. And we dug some hugel beds and used all the natural resources like on the one side of the island, and then we went and did it on the other side, and it was kind of a little bit of a different thing. We did a little garden outside of her mom's house that they have a big avocado tree, and so we just scooped up a bunch of the stuff from under the avocado tree and filled in this little thing and planted it on top of it, and it was really cool, and people were really receptive to it because I don't know if you know this, 90% of Hawaii's food is basically brought in on ships, and it might even be more than that. So if those boats stop running, you're in trouble. And during this whole COVID thing, they stopped everything. So after 3 days, people get hungry, and if you don't have food, you can imagine what's going to happen. And I don't think people so distracted by everything else, they don't really grasp that that's really like the lesson that we needed to learn from all this shit. Was they turned off the switch, and if you don't have food sovereignty and that happens again, you're fucked. Maybe even some guns to defend it, but that's a whole different ball of wax. But let's just start with food sovereignty, and if you have enough food sovereignty, you don't need guns. How about that? Everybody can come to the plate and eat, table and eat. But teaching them these gardening techniques, and how to build stuff on top of the lava rocks, and sometimes depleted soil, or some places on the island there's just not a lot of soil, so how you can help build that stuff for generations to come was really kind of cool, and that people were catching on to the idea that this needs to be our priority here. There's no reason that they shouldn't be growing all their food.
Who first was it? Was it Leighton that you mentioned was your sort of soil mentor in Hawaii?
No. His name's Logan.
Logan.
He's on Instagram, Conscious Rhythms. They have a record
okay. Yeah.
out there. Man, really, really cool cat, and he's a student of Master Cho.
Okay.
And
for the people who are listening who don't know what a Hugo bed is, can you tell them what that is?
Yeah. I believe the old German guys get credit for it, but essentially it's a carbon sink. So you burn wood, the carbon gets released into the air. It's not so good. Plants are made of carbon. They need to eat carbon. Carbon belongs in the soil. So you can dig a trench, or you can make a mound, and you start out by laying down dead wood, fallen wood, rotten wood. Hardwoods are great. Deciduous trees are great. Avoid cedar. And then you basically make like a lasagna, using leaf stuff and forest floor stuff, and green mulch and brown mulch or compost, and soil, and you kind of layer it on up. And then what happens is over time you continue to top dress on it and mulch on in place, compost in place. But over time all that breaks down and becomes food for your plants, and you basically set yourself up for 20 years, depending on your size, 20 up to 20 years or more of great nutrition for your plants. And those when they break down the wood, all that mycelium can fix soils. If you've got heavy clay soils, it'll aerate it and do all kinds of really great stuff. So yeah, it's a really cheap way to make a garden and use natural resources around you instead of having to bring inputs in.
Would you consider a Hugo bed regenerative?
Yeah, I mean,
like regenerative growing. Yeah.
Yeah, you're mimicking what's going on in the forest. Tree falls down, shit piles up on it, right? And that's how nature does it. The biochar is mimicking a forest fire, and adding a different layer in there for the microbes to attach and do all kinds of things, right? And everything that you're doing is mimicking nature. If I like to talk about this, in nature, right? It's the apex is an old growth forest, and nobody ever goes and feeds those trees. It feeds itself. The whole system feeds itself. There's so much energy in abundance, and it's just a matter of capturing it and keeping it there, right? The trees are feeding themselves.
Yeah. You mentioned, Kaya, that Hawaii has 10 of the world's 14 climate zones, and I wanted to ask you if you got a chance to see varietals expressing themselves in those different zones, and how drastic that expression difference was if you were
Oh yeah. 100%. I got a friend that grows way high up in the mountains down south on the island, and his nugs are very small but just incredibly crystal laden. It's cold where he's at. He gets full exposure to stuff, and then the guys who are growing kind of more lower, I'd say below 2,000, maybe even 1,500 feet. It's kind of almost the sweet spot, and their hash is great too. But the buds are much bigger, not as crystally. I like the terp profile a little bit better, but you can absolutely see it. And again, we've had them run the same cuts even, and it's totally different. Just as you might imagine when you see indoor growers. Nobody's indoor grow is dialed the same, right? You're creating an artificial environment, and everybody creates a different one, and that's why your plants all look different, even if it's the same strain.
All right, so as we're kind of wrapping things up, I'm really actually excited about this question, and I think it's super valuable to get your outlook on this, being somebody who's spent so much time in the industry. And what what advice do you have for craft growers and how to position themselves in the market to coexist with big business? Like you're somebody who's been able to do it fairly successfully. What advice do you have for others?
I don't think it's something that you can fake, and I don't think that I think people gravitate to what we're doing because it's authentic, and I think that because the practices are authentic too, that the product reflects it, and it kind of creates its own thing, right? You don't have to worry about it. Do good things will come to you, right? It's really hard to compete in these environments mostly because of the market. But I think I think maximizing, understanding and maximizing your potential profits, being able to put your story out there so people know the value, but also, like in our case, there's a wash of flowers out there, and I can't get top dollar for it. And with what we're doing with our outdoor stuff, nobody's going to pay us a lot of money for outdoor flowers. It's just not in my market. That's not going to happen. But I can take that flower and I can turn it into hash. And now I've actually created the initial product, grew that flower cheaper and better than the competition, right? Because I did it using my own methods, which those big shops are not, those big producers are not using. So I'm using a real different kind of method, which makes my cost super fucking low. I'm not paying for inputs they're paying for. I'm not paying for the labor that they're paying for, especially in my outdoor stuff, right? Those Hugo beds, there's no pot plant, no potting, no none of that stuff. So I'm producing that at the cheapest I can, right? Now, if I took that flower to market, I'd be taking the lowest, getting it at its lowest value. Once I process it, they don't know if it's indoor or outdoor flower, and they don't care, And honestly, some of the stuff that we grow outdoor makes better hash than the stuff that we grow indoor. So now I can really take. I made it really low, cost me very little to make it. I'm going to get the highest amount for it, and now my margin is wide, and I've got breathing room. And if you have an opportunity to not go fuck all in debt, because we built it up really slowly. We were patient with ourselves, didn't try to get it all in there. It was like, hey, we're gonna make some money. That'll always keep you making the right money decision, so that you don't overextend and pay your money out on something that you don't necessarily need, and then you're gonna need that money later and it bites you in the ass, right? Because you gotta have operating capital to keep moving. So again, maximizing that margin, minimizing your cost of operation, maximizing your margin, especially by creating products with further processing if you can. And again, on my hash rooms, I didn't go drop $100,000 on a whole bunch of crazy tanks and a bunch of weird shit. You know what I mean? Like I got a $1,700 press. I bought minimum amount of bags so that I could get my first thing done. First runs in, you know what I mean? Like the big expense was the freeze dryer and packaging, but keep those expenses down so that you're not running on the razor's edge. You got to do it like we did the hustle. You never fucked up in the hustle because you fucked up, you're done, right? You take the bag and run. Now you're fucking done. You can't go back to the plug, right? Or you spend all your profits. You don't have anything to go back and reflip. You always keep your flip money so you can go back and keep flipping it and then pull out the a little bit off the top to survive and then start squirreling that away and start building it. And then you've got more buying power and build it organically. so that you can feel your feet underneath you and you don't get lost. And well, fuck, I got to get the new machine. And then you're sitting there looking at the fucking machine. Well, great, we bought the machine, but we don't have enough to pay the fucking power bill for the lights to get us through this first crop. You know, don't lose touch of that because you're in the legal world and you got access to loans and blah blah. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Wise words. Kai, you've got the collab with Stayfly. You've got the collab with Green Source. I think you're doing an auto collab with Mandalorian. Is there any other groups that you're can announce that you're working with that I didn't cover?
Yeah, Daniel, with Heartwood.
Oh, dope.
Yep. He did some stuff with Coffee F5 and a Purple Velvet, and it's like a double cross, so a boy one and a girl the other, and then a flip. And that one's gonna come out. I'm literally just waiting on these boxes to get here so I can start stamping them. We got the seeds; it's all done, photos and whatnot. And that really was honestly, I shit you not, this was not something that was like premeditated and planned. It just kind of happened naturally, you know. Nicholas and I just got to talking. I said, man, I could help you with that. And he said, great, let's, and it worked out. And then somebody else hit me up and said, hey, can I want to release some of these too? And I said, man, yeah, do that. Let's go, and check it out. And it's just kind of evolved, man. And it's been really, really good for everybody. And it's produced some of the most incredible genetics, I think, on the market. Some of the most proper bred, tested, hardy, it's really some good shit that these guys are helping create. And yeah,
I just got back from the Regen conference in Michigan, and Michigan showed up. Like, there's some awesome dudes out there and some great farmers, and you were definitely in the mouths of a lot of them as sort of the staples up there. Emerald Mountain Legacy, Pacific Northwest Roots, Stayfly. I heard a lot. It was really cool, like, hearing those names. So Matt,
and like Stayfly guys, him and his girl, they're just doing it's article work, and they're running it all, and they've got dank stuff, and they're like it's checking all the fucking boxes that you want checked, and it's so refreshing in a time when a lot of it's not that, and you're only getting good vibes from the camp, you know what I mean? Like, there, we like we say, we're too busy smoking our own grass to worry about what you color your grass is or how green it is over there,
Oh yeah.
And I think that that's refreshing for the industry. I think some of those fuckers need a little bit of that. I hope they get a whiff of what we're
100%.
cooking up over here.
100%.
Ban it that way.
Yeah. Is there stuff that you're allowed to talk about that you're really excited for, like, that's coming up that you're cooking in the back kitchen?
I think this new drop that we're waiting on here with these boxes with the collabs from Green Source, and I still got some of the Stayfly packs and the Heartwood, and some new stuff with the Green Source, and I'm doing some more breeding stuff. We're always working some new stuff. I'm not going to get into that yet because we're still testing, but
that's fair.
It's just people get out in front of their mouths, and then what happens when it don't work out, and then you don't ever hear anybody backpedal and go, oh, it didn't work out. So
right.
They just
right.
No, that's because they're releasing. That's because they're releasing, shitty crosses that Hermy.
Yeah. And I've got stuff that's Hermied on me. I've got stuff that was like, man, that's a fucking fail, and we just threw it out. I got chickens; they like to eat those things.
No, yeah, my point was that you actually test stuff and run stuff and do the proper work.
I got
you. Well, and again, like, I went to that Living Soil Symposium, and Kelly from Dragonfly Earth Medicine was talking about our stewardship of the plant and what people had gave for it and what it gives to us. And I really felt a little bit, I went to a couple High Times things and was feeling myself a little bit too much, and she humbled me, kind of shamed me, really. And I just kind of realized, like, man, yeah, so much of the time we make it about us, and what we can attach our name to or whatever. And if you're really not doing some serious breeding to further the plant, and by that I mean making proper selections, doing things to, like, not just this fucking shotgun scattered untested, all that If you're not doing that, then you really got to check your conscience. You really got to check your intention. Check your intention. That's all I'm saying. Check your intention. However much you feel yourself. Because she checked me. I was in check, and I was like, man, I'm gonna really slow myself down and make sure that everything I do is intentional, and hope for the best. That's
I appreciate that. Nick, I met Nick at Emerald this year. One of the realest dudes I met. Like, what a cool.
It's next level.
Yeah. So I'm stoked to see what you guys do together, and really excited to look at that work. But where can people find you, Kaya? Where are the best places to find you? What are your Instagram handles? Do you have
okay. You will never find me. Find yourself.
You'll never actually find me, but yeah.
If he wants you to find him, he'll let you find him.
I'll appear.
I find you. You don't find me.
Yeah.
You can find. I'm in Seed Bank's Seeds Here Now.
Yep.
Neptune Seed Bank.
Platinum, I think, has you.
Yeah, Platinum. Up in Canada, Goose Seed Bank is my guy. He's out of Vancouver. I think he's out of Vancouver. Solid. I may be wrong about that, but Goose Seed Bank. Heavily connected seeds. There's lots of spots. You can email the NW47 at gmail.com. The NW47 at gmail.com, because it's the Northwest 47th parallel. And if you send that link, that's kind of a direct link, and we can get you packs or link you with somebody. Attic 365 is my dude in Europe, France, and Spain. He handles all of that stuff. South Africa, the Green Avengers. They can help you out down there. Super cool group of cats. You can find our seeds kind of anywhere. All those companies ship international. So if you're in Washington State, you can get our hash at any number of stores. We're in like 50 stores in Washington State. Pretty easy to find us, and you can call around. They got some stupid limits in hash, but you can shop around and work around that. If you want to come out here and buy a bunch of hash and take it home with you, I encourage it. Or make a friend and do what you guys do. Just saying, it's out there and available. We've got a new website called OurShitStinks.com. You can go to OurShitStinks.com and you can order Roots gear. You can get hoodies, and we got koozies, all kinds of shit. And we just launched a new seed bank called Kraken Seeds, and we'll have all kinds of cool new releases from the Bearded Kraken, one of my partners out there, and exclusive stuff from the Roots. That's kind of our new project. It took me a long time to, again, I got two hands. How much can I do? But we're finally getting around to doing our own seed distribution. And so, yeah, Kraken Seed Bank is the spot. Yeah, we have a grow store, House of Nutrients. You could check it out online. HON-Bermerton.com, I think is the. But if you just Google House of Nutrients in Bermerton, Washington, we've got a cool little grow shop community. We're the only one left in the county, and we've got new and used stuff. We've got Dragonfly Earth Medicine, Organics Alive, Sensi Size Soil. We bought the spot and started bringing in all the good shit, all the high grade stuff. We're trying to move out all the junk, and teach people a new way to grow. We got the link on LEDs for folks. We can do financing and stuff. So if you guys want to get back into doing home grows, we're really encouraging people to exercise your medicinal patient rights here in our state. Yeah, man. I don't know what else you guys want from me.
No, I was like, I just told I'm going to see this bullshit. How long you like plugging, man? This guy's everywhere. Holy.
Doing everything too. Everywhere, doing everything.
It takes good people. It takes really good people. And that takes trust. I've opened up. I've trained people in my hash room, and I got people that come in and they really love what they do. And they've let me teach and share them my techniques, and they picked it up and they honor it and do it right. And that's why you see hash that looks like awesomeness. Yeah, it's super cool. And I've shared genetics, and people have shared it back with me. shared seeds and done breeding projects, and this is all the result of me just giving, and a lot of the stuff I didn't expect to come back to me, and it did. So it's a lesson somewhere in there.
Karma, brother, karma.
Absolutely. Kaya, thank you so much for your time, man. We appreciate you so much, and we'd love to have you back on the show.
Right, I appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.
Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, Rastafari.
Thanks again. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Make
Thank
sure you
you.
like and subscribe, everybody, and thanks, Ross.
Be humble and kind.
Much love.